Okie dokie, I believe we are all the way live. Hello and welcome to my graveyard. I am your host of the evening, the Cemetery Man from Salem, Mass. Always taking names, kicking candy ass, live and in living color here with you on Grande's Graveyard. Welcome back to another edition of the show where tonight we face the Onryo. We meet the horror legend known as one Kayako and Toshio Saeki. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, tonight I've got a grudge, I've got a Ju-on, I've got a curse, a born of the vengeful rage, and we're going to let it out here tonight only on the graveyard. Yes, this is real, this is live, this is in living color, this is rock and roll, and this is a Japanese horror special where tonight we jump into the Ju-on franchise part 2. Of course, I did part 1 about 2 years ago, I believe in September of 2021. It was a different world then, different times, different places, different faces. And, you know, I love the Ju-on series, especially the ones I covered in part 1. Part 2 tonight is not exactly the same case, and we will get there. We will get to why that is. I mean, some of these movies I don't mind, but some of these movies are quite bad. When we get to the last 3, they become quite bad and quite tough to watch. This was not the easiest week in the world for show prep, and I'm very excited here tonight because I will be discussing the American Trilogy, which is the Grudge 1, 2, and 3. I actually have the original remake here from America. Sarah Michelle Gellar getting top billing there. And of course, the Japanese reboot series, whether it be Ju-on White Ghost, which we'll be covering, Ju-on Black Ghost, we will be covering that. We'll be covering Ju-on The Beginning of the End, Ju-on The Final Curse, Sadako versus Kayako in a very brief review because I have covered that on the Monster Mash show from about a year ago. So I have done an in-depth review on that. So that one we'll kind of gloss over, but we will mention it. And finally, The Grudge 2020, the first movie of this decade that was released in America. And boy, oh boy, that's a colorful creature right there. We will get to that one as we move on into the show. But first, let me welcome my wonderful chat. Of course, Miss C is in the house. Ciao, Grande and friends. Pan pink waving. Welcome, my friend. Hope also with you. Mr. Aiden Vavra is here. Hello, everyone. Aiden was very excited to hear my thoughts on Ju-on, not Ju-on, but The Grudge 2020. So I hope to not disappoint. That's going to be the last one on here, though, Aiden. So I apologize. You're going to have to listen to me rant and rave and rave and all these wonderful things until we get there. But hopefully it'll be entertaining enough. Hey, Aiden, we've got Mateo is here. Konnichiwa, Grande. Ready for another awesome episode only on the Graveyard. Hi to the whole chat. Mateo, my friend, hope all is well with you. Ciao, Mateo. We got the monkey in the house. Wow, this is a long time since the monkey has joined the graveyard. Welcome, the monkey. Hope all is well with you. When will you be covering Samara Morgan? Well, my friend, we've covered Sadako Yamamura and Samara Morgan on Grande's Graveyard in the past. I did a Ring franchise part 1, which I did Ringu, Razin, Ringu 2, and Ring 0. Then Curly Girl at the Movies came on Grande's Graveyard, and we talked about every single Ring movie they ever did, whether it be American or Japanese. So if you want to get your Ring fix, you want to get your Samara Morgan on, you could watch that episode. We went all things into the American, Japanese, from worst to best. It was a very fun show talking all things, you know, Sadako Yamamura with Curly Girl. So shout out to her, and if you're interested in that, you could always check out that video. Let's see. Aiden Babber says, you're all good. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on the rest of these installments. Thank you, my friend. The Grudge sounds like an old school Dusty Rhodes versus Ric Flair grudge match. Link anyone? I can link it. Sure. I'll tell you what. I will look for the link right now, and I'll put it in the chat for you. No problem, because we haven't even really gotten started. My guess is the chat's going to be very, very quiet tonight because these are not movies that are generally talked about very often. And understandably so. I mean, I'm a fan of Japanese horror. I love it. I'm a big fan of it, but I could totally understand if it's not your thing. I really can. So, I mean, it is what it is, but I'm a fan, and I really wanted to cover these tonight. I did, some Japanese horror specials earlier this year. We did J-Horror special, and the Ring episode wasn't terribly long ago. I'm trying to find it here. Here it is. Yeah, it was just 8 months ago. Curly Girl in the movie. So I will copy the link and I'll paste it in the chat for you, my friend. How about that? So we got here, paste, boom. And there you go. That is the link for the episode with me and Curly Girl which was a lot of fun. Always like working with her. And I actually got to meet her not too long ago, which was really cool. Very, very good people. Let's see. Mystic Mac is in the house. Need to watch these movies soon. Mac, hope all's well with you, my friend. Yeah, no, I had a fun time with most of this. Granted, like I watched the American movies all one day. I did the Grudge 1 through 3 in a day. And then the Japanese reboots, I did them, night after night after night. So I started this Friday night going into Saturday. Then Saturday night started Ju-on White Ghost. Sunday was Ju-on Black Ghost. Then Ju-on Beginning of the End was Monday. Ju-on The Final Curse was Tuesday. And then finally, The Grudge 2020 was last night. So that's how I kind of scheduled out the show prep here. Been watching a lot of Japanese horror cinema. I am actually kind of burnt out of it, to be honest with you. So it's going to be nice to get it off my chest and then take a little bit of a break, my friend. That hat, Grande, awesome, man. Dude, thank you so much. I'm glad you like it. Little Dawn of the Dead, the greatest movie ever made right there. And also, before we get into the movies here, I'm sorry that I'm prolonging this intro like obnoxiously. I do apologize. But we do have some brand new spanking news. We have a brand new Grande's Graveyard t-shirt that's going to be printed. If you're interested, you can let me know. I'll do a last call probably sometime during next week, and then I'll go ahead and order them. Of course, you can still get the original shirt as well. If you want it, if you like it, if you need it, if you feel it, if you want any part of it, you can let me know, and I can order you one, no problem. And of course, if we get down to whatever it would cost later. But if you guys are interested in an old shirt or the new design, if you want to see the new design, you can go to my community tab and see the new design. Of course, and the old design is right here on my chest. So if you guys are interested, let me know. I have no problem ordering, printing some for you. About next week will probably be the cutoff. I'll make a last call if I don't hear anything. I'll just buy what I've been told. So I'm very excited about that. I want to take time to thank Taylor Knox for doing an awesome job with the new design. I absolutely loved it. I'm just so happy with it. And I was like, you know what? This is great. So we're going to start printing these, and hopefully we'll have them to you guys by Christmas time, a little bit before then. Hopefully, fingers crossed. So it is what it is. We've got Texas THC is in the house. Hola, Grande, and everybody. We got all sorts of, we got konnichiwas, we've got olas, we've got chows. I just love this chat. This is not just Grande's Graveyard chat. This is the United Nations only on the Graveyard. Let's see. Thanks to you, Grande. I do have a question about The Grudge. Why did the disabled lady who needed a caretaker not be affected and have a conversation with her in the bed that the caregiver saw? Well, that's in this movie. That's, of course, Laura Palmer's mom, which is funny. We'll get there. I'm going to review the whole movie, so no worries, my friend. I may have to get the purple getup. Well, my friend, if you want one, let me know. I'll reach out to you before I order them if you're on the fence or whatever. And I'm with payments. Like, you don't have to do it right away. I trust you guys. I love you guys. There's no problem with it. I really do. So, it is what it is. Hi, Miss Carter. Speaking of, smash the like, brother. Welcome, UFC Labyrinth Breakdown. Hell yeah, man. Yeah, this guy, he got a shirt last year, and he was like, I can't pay you right away. I was like, dude, don't worry about it. Pay me in time. And I was so happy. I believe he wanted two. He wanted one old one new one. So I will hook it up, my friend. Hope all is well with you. Let's see. You know what I want? Want the new one, just got to figure out how to get the money to you. Well, don't worry about it right now, my friend. We will worry about it down the road. Now, let's just enjoy ourselves. Everybody, cheers to a safe, happy, healthy, wonderful weekend this weekend. I hope everyone's has some nice, fun, happy plans. I've got a wonderful Code Red Dew here. Oh, man. And it hits the spot. It hits the spot, my friends. But let me dive into the show. This has been long enough of a intro here. I apologize for the long-winded intro, but there's just some things I had to say. And of course, we take place after, I guess, part one of my episode. Of course, on part one of the Ju-on breakdown, I went into Ju-on, 444, Katasumi, which were the two short films, of course, directed and written by Mon Takashi Shimizu. And then, of course, he got the TV deal to do the two movies, Ju-on the Curse and Ju-on the Curse Part 2. Of course, those movies were fantastic and got so well received that they gave him the theatrical shot in Japan to make Ju-on the Grudge and Ju-on the Grudge Part 2. And those movies set the world on fire. I like all those movies I just mentioned. And that was part one of Grande's Graveyard when I discussed the Ju-on franchise. Here is part two, where we kind of take place after that story ended. And basically, I can foreshadow what happened before I get into this movie itself. Mr. Sam Raimi, yes, Mr. Sam Raimi of Evil Dead fame, saw and loved Ju-on the Curse. He absolutely loved it. And then he saw Ju-on the Grudge. He saw it, absolutely loved it. And he contacted Takashi Shimizu and he said, hey, I got me and Bob Tappert, man. We will produce this if you will come to America and make a Ju-on remake in English and with American actors. And we really want to do this. We really want to do this with you. Of course, this was the time where Sam Raimi was a big deal. I mean, Sam Raimi was directing Spider-Man 2 the year that The Grudge would come out. So, I mean, he was, involved in a lot of crazy box office, millions and millions of dollars of shit, and a big time superhero, one of the biggest, if not the biggest superhero in Spider-Man, making Spider-Man movies, big budgeted. And of course, on his indie horror kind of roots of The Evil Dead and The Evil Dead 2 and all these wonderful movies, he sees the Ju-on the Grudge movie and says, hey, Takashi, please, we want you to come over. We want you to make this. And you had a little bit of a crossroads. What do I mean by that? Takashi Shimizu went to bat for himself. He said, listen, I'm honored. I'm humbled. I would love to do it. And I'm definitely taking the payday. There's no doubt he took his payday. But you take it out of Japan, you're going to kill it. He was like, we can't take this out of Japan. So the team came together of Tappert and Raimi, and they met with Takashi Shimizu and a translator, and the four of them sat down, and how are we going to do this? What are we going to do here? And Shimizu said, what if we keep it in Japan? We keep the story in Japan, and we have American actors in Japan, and then they encounter the curse. And basically that's how they came to the agreement. This way, all of us, from the United States, we can not lead subtitles, which to me doesn't matter, but to a lot of people it will. Of course, that was the compromise. We'll get Buffy the Vampire Slayer to be the star of the damn thing, and we'll have, American actors speaking in English in Japan, and they encounter the Grudge, they encounter the curse. So that was the compromise. And, at the time, this was a very big movie. This movie grossed almost $40 million in the United States when it opened. And in fact, it dethroned The Departed. The Departed. No, I'm sorry. The Grudge 2 dethroned The Departed. That was The Grudge 2. But this movie was a ginormous hit in America. And of course, they greenlit the sequel, I believe, the following Monday of the weekend it came out. So without further ado, let's introduce the first movie of the evening here tonight. This is from the year 2004. This is The Grudge. An American nurse living and working in Tokyo is exposed to a mysterious supernatural curse, one that locks a person in a powerful rage before claiming their life and spreading to another victim. Yes, The Grudge. Now, this was a pretty big deal when it came out. You're talking almost 20 years ago. In a month or so, it'll be 2024, and this movie will be 20 something years old. I believe it came out. I want to say it came out in October. I think it came out the week before Saw. So this movie came out, set the world on fire. The following week, Saw comes out, makes $100 million worldwide. So it's absolutely incredible how big horror was booming in 2004, especially in the month of October. You get the Grudge remake directed by Shimizu, and then you, of course, have James Wan coming out the following week, making, the biggest horror franchise of the 2000s. So horror was kicking in 2004, especially this month. Now, this particular movie, I've always been sort of mixed on. Now, I do like it, and compared to some of these other movies we'll be talking about, it's Citizen Kane, it's Ju-on the Grudge, it's Ju-on the Curse. I mean, it's that good compared to those movies. But here's the thing. While I respect Raimi's decision to keep Shimizu, because that's the only guy that can make a Ju-on movie to me, it's Takashi Shimizu's baby. Like, he came from literally film school to making 2 shorts for film school to getting the chance for a TV movie, to getting the chance for a theatrical deal, to getting the chance to come to America, to come to the United States, get a big 7-figure payday, and make his vision come to life for mass audiences. And it grosses a shit ton of movie and spawns a trilogy. I mean, he was on cloud 9. I mean, he was really the biggest thing, man. Like I know people will mention Hideo Nakata. They'll mention Takashi Miike, and I love Nakata. I love Miike. I think Miike is arguably one of the best ever. But none of them got the money and the mainstream success that a Shimizu did. And it was all from this one idea. It was all from Ju-on the Grudge. And of course, it tells the story of this, when a family dies in the grip of a powerful rage, a curse is born. And it tells the story of, Kayako Saeki and Toshio, her son, and then of course the husband, Takeo Saeki, and how she was in love with this other man. In this movie, it's the American actor Bill Pullman. She loved him. He was this professor at her school that taught English, and she kind of loved him. She would write in her diary about him, oh, Peter, I loved Peter. And of course, Takeo finds out about this. You love another man, you love an American, and gets very angry. He ends up killing Kayako in a fit of rage, drowning Toshio in the bathtub alongside the cat. And thus this, Onryo is born. And Onryo is basically a vengeful ghost spirit, which is what Kayako Saeki and Toshio Saeki respectively are. They're Onryos, which means vengeful spirit. And basically, if you enter the house, if you enter the Saeki house, you get the curse. It's almost like a virus or a common cold. If I go into the house and then I go out and play poker with a bunch of friends, not only do I have the curse, but all my buddies I played poker with, they're cursed too. So it's almost like the common cold or COVID or whatever the hell you want to mention. That's how the curse works. If I enter the house, I have it. If I encounter anybody else, they're going to have it too. And of course, Kayako comes to get you. And the main, to me, selling point, the main attraction of any good Ju-on movie are the scare sequences. And to me, Takashi Shimizu is a master of horror just based on the wonderful scare sequences that he directs in these movies. I mean, they're top notch. They are some of the best stuff. And I know, I was talking to my friend Brianne. She was telling me, I never liked the Grudge movies. They just weren't my cup of tea. And that's totally fine. I know quite a few people that they'll tell you these are not their cup of tea. I totally respect that. For me, though, if someone asked me, Grande, name a movie that scared the shit out of you, look no further than some of the Ju-on movies, mostly the originals. This movie is definitely scary too. It's effectively scary. However, I have knocks with this and I have problems with this, and I'll get into it right off the bat. Now, while I appreciate we're going to make it for a mass audience, we're going to get we're going to get Buffy the Vampire Slayer herself. We're going to get Bill Pullman. We're going to get Clay Duvall. We're going to get some actors here. It kind of defeats the purpose. It's like, okay, it's a bunch of American people in Japan. Like Sarah Michelle Gellar goes to this agency and Ted Raimi's there. He's like, oh, hey, it's Ted Raimi. I'm like, Ted Raimi, what the fuck? Of course, Sam Raimi's the producer, so it makes sense that Ted would show up. But it's just every single, protagonist in this movie ends up being American. Like there's no Japanese protagonist and we're in Japan. So part of me just kind of wonders, okay, you see that it's a fair compromise. You see that Shimizu was like, I want to keep it in Japan because that's where the roots are. That's Ju-on. That's just a part of it. It can't be separated. Same thing as Jason and Crystal Lake. It doesn't work anywhere else. It's Crystal Lake and Jason. It just goes together. It's Haddonfield and Michael Myers. It's, Kayako Saeki in the fucking house in Japan. That's just Ju-on. That's what it is. And so I appreciate they kept the geography, but then, of course, you have, okay, all these kind of American actors. And, okay, whereas the Ju-on the Curse was a really gritty and dark and low-budget picture, this is very polished. And, if you like polished horror, this is it, man. It definitely has that polished Hollywood look to it, fluctuated with those Japanese scare sequence that Shimizu brings to the table. However, I don't know if that really works for Ju-on. Like, don't get me wrong. Are the scare sequences great in this? Yes, they are. It's almost as though he cherry-picked the best of the other movies. He was like, okay, I've made 4 of these now. It's 6 if you include the 2 shorts, Katasumi and 4 for 4, 4, 4 for 4. I made 6 of these now. Let me cherry-pick the best moments of each movie and splice them all together in this. And that's kind of what it feels like. This movie kind of feels like Frankenstein's monster, if you will. We'll take a cherry pick from, Izumi. We'll take a cherry pick from Ju-on the Curse 2. We'll take a cherry pick from Ju-on the Grudge. We'll take cherry picks from my favorite cherries and try to mesh them together to create this ultimate Frankenstein monster that becomes The Grudge 2004. That's really what it feels like. It's very disjointed. And I know that a lot of people do not like the way that the story is told. It's told, almost like Pulp Fiction, where you'll have the, a third of the movie's at the beginning, then the ending of the movie is in the middle, and it jumps all over the fucking place. That's the way all these movies were done before this, so that doesn't bother me. And especially if you had watched the movies before this one becomes fairly linear when you compare them to Ju-on the Curse 1 and 2 or Ju-on the Grudge 1 and 2. But I do think that this thing does feel disjointed of the fact that it really does feel like he was like, okay, I can impress with this scare sequence, I can impress with this scare sequence and this scare sequence. And then the rest of the characters just feel really lifeless. Like, I usually love Sarah Michelle Gellar. She really doesn't have much oomph in this role. I don't know if she was too old for the role. I don't know if she felt too old for the role. I don't know if it just didn't work. I don't know. I don't know if maybe her heart wasn't in it. I have no idea, but it just doesn't work. A lot of the characters don't really work in this movie. Bill Pullman, same thing. I love Bill Pullman usually. Just doesn't have much oomph to the performance. Now, where it does pack a punch, though, like I said, was the scare sequences. And if you're watching a Ju-on movie, that's what you want. You want good scare sequences. And while he did cherry pick from the other movies, there's no doubt the scare sequences are so well done in this movie. Now, the primary one for me is the woman. She's leaving the office at night. She's the only one. She's an American woman in a foreign country. She's working some PTO. She gets out of the office and she just hears some noises behind her. And you hear almost like a bag. It sounds like a bag is being dragged. And she's kind of looking behind her shoulder. She runs to a Japanese security guard. And I thought for one thing that it worked in here was this particular scare sequence where she goes to the Japanese security guard and she's frustrated that she can't explain to him in Japanese what's going on. Her Japanese is not, the most polished. It's not the greatest. She's trying to explain to him. He's like, okay, calm down. Like, he goes to take a look at it. But I thought that added a different element. I was like, okay, if you're going to do American and Japanese, together, that's an interesting kind of topic where, okay, I'm trying to express myself, please help me, and you don't understand because we don't speak the same language. I thought that was effective. I was like, okay, that's something that the remake added that I liked. Then, of course, he finds nothing. She's trying to get back to her house. She keeps having these creepy encounters. She has a call on the phone from her brother. Hey, I'm going to come see you. Okay, great. She gets up to her apartment with these elevators. And she goes floor by floor by floor. She's kind of like in the back, in the corner of the elevator. And we see in the little window, every floor, you see Toshio Saeki, like watching her slowly but surely as she gets to the top of the floor. I thought that was great. I was like, okay, awesome. A nice callback to Ju-on the Grudge, but it works here. I thought that was a really effective scare sequence. She gets into the room. She gets the call. Hey, what floor are you again? Oh, I'm floor 16. Okay. Ring immediately. And she sees him in the peephole. Opens the door and no one's there. Then she goes back in. She's afraid. She's dropped her phone. She gets under the covers where, it's the most logical. What could get us under the covers? We're safe under the covers. She goes under the covers, looks under the bed, and Kayako is there and pulls her into the abyss. Fantastic. That's, to me, scare sequence. That's horror 101. To me, that's something that should be studied, is how well Takashi Shimizu crafts that scare sequence. I love that scare sequence. I just thought it worked from top to bottom. I was absolutely blown away by that. And I thought it was done as good, if not better, than it was done in Ju-on the Grudge. But let me get back to the chat. I'm sorry. I've neglected y'all for far too long. Sometimes I tend to ramble. Labyrinth Waven, welcome, my friend. Slasher Fred is here. Welcome, Slasher Fred. The original Godzilla is definitely a Japanese horror movie. I agree. And I loved, by the way, the new Godzilla -1, I thought was absolutely incredible. I thought it was perfect. I really, really love the new Godzilla. Highly recommend people go out and check that thing out in the theaters because that was a fantastic movie. Probably up there with my favorite of the year. For as far as movies I saw this year, I loved it. Ringu, Rangu, Ragu. It all sounds like spaghetti to me. Let's see. Yeah, manja. A little Italian Ringu here. Let's see. Sam Raimi did his own version of Batman, Darkman. And Mateo, there you go. Darkman started Liam Neeson's career. I really enjoy that movie, by the way. Sam Raimi and his friend Scott Spiegel did an audio commentary for the original Ju-on the Grudge. I didn't know that. Wow, that sounds like something that would be really interesting to listen to because I love both those guys, man. That's really cool. I know Arrow did a really cool Ju-on set, and it's out of print now. Good luck getting it now, unless you want to pay an arm and a leg. And especially around the holiday season, it'll probably be marked up as even more. But basically, Arrow did a set where it was marketed as 4K. And I was so excited. I was like, dude, I'm getting the 4K Ju-on set. Only Ju-on the Grudge was in 4K, whereas Ju-on the Curse 1 and 2 were region locked Blu-ray. Ju-on the Grudge 2 was region locked Blu-ray, and then Ju-on White Ghost and Black Ghost were region locked Blu-ray. The only one in 4K was Ju-on the Grudge. And I was like, that is so stupid. Why would you put out a giant box set marketed as 4K, and only one of like these 7 movies in the set are 4K. I thought that was so lame. But I mean, it is what it is. And unfortunately, yeah, region locked, I can't do because I don't have a region free player. So it is what it is. Neeson, I made stupid self-correction. Oh, no worries. I knew what you meant. Let's see. Dang, the American Grudge is almost as old as me. Wow, that's incredible. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that absolutely crazy? That is fucking wild, man. You know, it's funny. Like, I'm 26. I'm rather young, but Aiden is like the baby of all of us, man. It's weird. It's like, I feel like there'll be a day where I'm like, be like, oh, you're 26. I remember when I was 26. Like, I dread that day, to be honest. Like, I just want to be 26 forever. Rosebud. Let's see. I like the American version of The Grudge, but the filmmaker already caught lightning in a bottle with that original film. I think so too. Like, okay, after making, if you count the 2 short films, 6, this is technically the 7th movie with the same story that he's making. So I understand why he cherry picked, because I might have done the same thing. If I'm Shimizu and I'm getting a 7-figure payday, I might do the same fucking thing. I might just go, what's the best scenes I did? Let's just throw them all together, and maybe that will work. Here's the thing, though, and I will say this goes for everything. Sometimes too many things of a good thing don't work. And what do I mean by that? Let's do a hypothetical. You've got a gumbo. Let's say you got a big-ass gumbo. You've got pizza in the gumbo. I love pizza. You got steak in the gumbo. I love steak. You got a cheeseburger in the gumbo. I love a cheeseburger. You've got, Boston cream donut. You've got Cheetos pups. You've got shrimp. You've got crabs. You've got chili. You've got, every food underneath the sun. All those foods I just mentioned, I love and I consider them great. But together, I don't know if they're going to work. Yeah, a little surf and turf here. Yeah, never hurt anybody. But when you mix all of that stuff together, all that stuff is good separately. When you force it all together, it doesn't necessarily flow. I think that's what this movie misses. There's no flow like there is with the original 4 Japanese movies. It just does not flow the same. And the characters are really Limp Bizkit. I mean, they are truly some Limp Bizkit characters. The original Japanese version of The Grudge feels like a horror anthology movie. I agree, and I love that movie. To me, that is the Grudge movie. To me, Ju-On the Grudge is the best of the best. Then Ju-On the Curse, I would say those are the best too. Then Ju-On the Grudge 2. Those would be my top 3 Ju-On movies, which I covered them all in part 1. Let's see. Good evening, Graveyard Crew. Sean Blue Digital, who's soon changing his name. If you want to know what it is, it's on his community post. I'm very excited to see that name change. Welcome, my friend. Hope all is well with you. Let me scroll down here. Hey, Sean Blue. Sarah Michelle Gellar was also in the soap opera All My Children. Well, I love Sarah Michelle Gellar. She's a beautiful lady. No Grudge movies for me. A lot of people don't like. A lot of people like my friend Brianne. She was like, "Oh God, I can't watch." She's like, "That little boy is so weird." I'm like, "God damn, I don't know. I love Toshio, but I don't know." The scene when the woman running sounds like the original Cat People, where the woman feels like someone is following her. Yes, and that I think that is done so well. And I don't know. I really like the gags that Shimizu uses. And I think that if you're going to watch this, it is for the scare sequence that Takashi Shimizu brings to the table, because the guy is a master. He really is a great horror movie filmmaker. And I covered one of his movies just a couple of weeks ago in Reincarnation. And you know what's sad too? I mean, after The Grudge 2, they really just kind of typecasted him. They were like, "Hey, you're the Grudge guy. Like, we're sorry to tell you." And then, unfortunately, they gave him a lot of raw deals in America. Like, they gave him Flight 7500. Has anyone seen that? That's a horrendous movie. They gave him, I think, Kiki's Delivery Service, the live action remake in Japan, which wasn't the greatest thing. I mean, it's really a shame. The guy really was kind of given a shit deal after making these movies and getting these big paydays in The Grudge and The Grudge 2, respectively. I think he was burnt out of Ju-On by the time you get to the next one. And then I think, he just wanted to flex his bones, because this is a guy that also would make Maribito. This is a guy that, like I said, also made Reincarnation. I love Takashi Shimizu. I think the guy had a lot of interesting creative ideas that, unfortunately, because of his own success, I feel like he was kind of like, okay, in America, we'll give you all the money in the world to make Ju-On movies, but we're not going to give you money to do anything else. And he kind of fell victim to Hollywood's fatal game. Okay, do this for you, and we'll give you all this money to do something else. And they never did that. So it is unfortunate. It's rather unfortunate. But this movie from top to bottom, I think, is solid enough. It's not the worst remake. It's not the best remake. It's kind of one of those remakes that's in the middle. I would say the glass is half full with this movie because of the technical being so good. And, some of the things they change work, but most of it's just kind of a remake of Ju-on the Grudge with some of Ju-on the Curse sprinkled in. Takako Fuji, of course, as Kayako Saeki, to me, is iconic as the character. I love the way that she sells with her eyes. I think she's just a beautiful actress, number one. Number two, I think she's just so natural playing the Onryo. I love her as Kayako Saeki because she, at first, I was watching an interview with her. At first, she really wanted to channel the rage, partially being upset that, she died a premature death. She died because she was in love with another man. And I think her character in a lot of ways is a very tragic one. That's why I always really considered Kayako Saeki a far more interesting horror character than a Sadako Yamamura, only because I think her tale is far more tragic. Here's this woman that had everything. She had a loving husband. She had a loving son. She had a nice house. She wasn't in love anymore, though, and she didn't know how to say it. And instead, she bottled it up. She wrote it in a diary. And one day, her mean husband finds it and decides, hey, I'm going to take you out. I'm going to kill you, and creates this horrible, awful rage and curse in the process. And I like that when the actress started playing the role, she just wanted to channel the rage. But then as the movies go on, I think you see a little bit more in there. You see tragedy, you see emotion, you see sadness, you see disdain. And I think her performance is just cannot be understated in how good she is as Kayako Saeki. Like, to me, if people will tell you there is no Jason without Kane Hodder, to me there is no Kayako Saeki without Takako Fuji. I love her performance as this Onryo. I just think she's wonderful. I really do. I think, they had a lot of actresses after The Grudge 2 play her, and I don't think any of them come close. I really don't. Because she's just so natural and she's just so organic. And even Shimizu said this. He said, if they make Grudge movies without me, that's one thing. He says, that's fine. He goes, if they make Grudge movies without her, it's not Ju-on. And I agree with him. I don't think you can make a Ring. I will say this. You can't make a Grudge movie without Shimizu or without Takako Fuji. That's just my opinion. I think those two are the key ingredients to what makes these movies work. And when you take them out of it, it just wouldn't work. But you have them here. I think it works for the most part. Now, I don't love it. I really don't. I don't like if you say to me, oh, hey, man, well, we're watching a Grudge movie, Ju-on movie. What are we watching? This is not going to be the first one I grab for, but it certainly would not be the last one I'd grab for either. I think it's solid enough. I think it's good. I think it's about a 7 out of 10. I think it's solid. It scared a lot of people back in the day. And this was the exposure for the franchise. This was the movie that really put Ju-on the map. Now, a lot of Americans were like, holy shit, they made ones before this. And then they fall down the rabbit hole of the Japanese franchise. But I think this is a solid enough movie. I recommend it. I think it's worth the watch. If you have, what is it, Stars? Yeah, if you have Stars, you can watch it on Stars. I don't know anyone who has Stars, but I watched it in wonderful 480p on this fucking DVD. I mean, I'm not sure. Are there Blu-rays of these movies? Someone have to look that up for me. I didn't bother in my show prep. I know Nate was telling me that he had The Grudge 2 on PSP to watch, and he never watched it. I was like, that is so fucking awesome. I would love to watch a movie on PSP, because that was a, technology that just didn't catch on. But The Grudge, the remake from 2004, I recommend it. I think it's worth the watch. So definitely gets the recommendation from me. And is possibly the best movie we watched this week. Now, I'll warn you right now, we're over a half hour. This is going to be a long Grande's Graveyard. I am telling you right now, there's no way this is going to be a short show. So I apologize right off the bat about this, because this is going to be a lengthy one. And I know probably most people have not seen these movies. I bet you if any of you have seen these, it's this one. And then the rest of them would be like, fuck, I have no idea. Like, love you, buddy. But, let's see. Wonderfully said. Thank you so much. Texas saying hi to everybody. Mateo says Stars is part of Disney Plus. Well, there you go. Well, you can give it a watch and let me know what you think. Now, I know you, Mateo. I know you're a big Italian horror guy. So I feel like you would feel the same way I do. Like, yeah, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's very Americanized, whereas the roots came from another country. And I feel like that's where that movie works, And again, Not to say that it doesn't work in America, because you do bring Shimizu, you do bring, Takako Fuji, but at the same time, it ain't the same. It just didn't hit the same. If this is going to be long, I will get some food and Mountain Dew Baja Blast. Hell yeah, man. Cheers to that. I'll take another sip to that, just because if you're going Baja, I'm going Code Red. All right. Ooh, I got a little hiccup there. Sorry, excuse me. Let's see. Kubrick Lover 1972 is here. Ciao, Grande. Well, hey, Grande. I'm so used to saying ciao. Hey, Kubrick, like that Dawn of the Dead hat? Hell yeah, man. Before I move on, Kubrick Lover was the guy that actually said, hey, they're doing the Living Dead weekend, Grande. You should go. And I ended up going. That was my favorite vacation and favorite weekend of my entire year. So thank you, Mr. Kubrick Lover. I appreciated you reaching out to me and telling me about that, because I never would have went or known about it. And then you told me, and I went and had a great weekend. So shout out to you, my friend. Thank you very much for sharing that with me, because I had a wonderful weekend and a wonderful time when we went and did that. But without further ado, we're going to move on into the next movie. This was the American sequel here from the year 2006. And this was the one that beat The Departed at the box office. Beat The Departed. The Departed. Martin Scorsese won Best Picture. This movie beat it in its opening weekend. This is The Grudge 2. Yes, The Grudge 2. Brief plot synopsis. 3 interwoven stories about a terrible curse. A young woman encounters a malevolent supernatural force while searching for her missing sister in Tokyo. Meanwhile, a mean high school prank goes horribly wrong. And finally, a woman with a deadly secret moves into a Chicago apartment building. Yes, The Grudge 2. Now, I'm sorry, I got a couple more people in the chat. I think somebody else came in the house. Hey, it was John Steele, the only salute. John Steele, did you see the design for the new t-shirt? It's got only on the graveyard on the back of it. I think you'd love it, man. If you want one, let me know. I'm touched, Grande. Hey, I'm touched too. Thank you. Well said. Try to do Laughing Windows and Duckling in Boston. Give me a break. Exactly. It just doesn't work. And case in fucking point, The Grudge 2 and The Grudge 3. We're about to get here, Mateo, my friend. You're going to hear what they did with these movies. People saying hi to one another. Did I miss anybody? I don't think I did. So we can jump right in to The Grudge 2. Now, okay. This movie was literally greenlit the Monday after The Grudge comes out. This comes out on a Friday. And literally by Monday, they greenlit this movie because it made so much fucking money. And this movie, even 2 years removed, beats a movie that wins Best Picture the same fucking year, a Martin Scorsese film. It beats it at the box office. This fucking movie. That's wild to me. Now, I know The Departed, I believe, was in week 2 of its run, but still, that's incredible to me that this movie opened number 1 and then dropped off like a crazy percentage. I think it opened at 20 plus million and didn't gross 40. So it must have dropped off like literally 70 to 80%, which is an astronomical drop in its second week of the box office. But I digress. I'm sorry, I'm a nerd for box office numbers and shit like that. Let's get into the movie. Now, of course, like I said, this was greenlit just the Monday after. And of course, it feels like to me, now, I don't know who made the call. I don't know if it was Tappert. I don't know if it was Raimi. I don't know if it was some of the other executives that were in that room or at that time. I don't know who it was that made the call, but you can clearly tell they wanted it out of Japan. We don't want to do it in Japan anymore. We want to be in old America. We don't want to hear in fucking Japan. And I can sense that Shimizu probably was not wanting to do that. But of course, money talks, and there's another 7-figure payday. How many of these are you going to get? And the answer for Takashi Shimizu, this was the last one. He never got a 7-figure payday again. So honestly, and I listen, people say, hey, he sold out. I don't agree with that at all. He got a chance to make something he wanted to do. He got fucking paid handsomely to do it. And this was his swan song. This was the last Shimizu directed Ju-on/Grudge entity was this movie. This was his swan song as the director, creator, writer, creative, all that stuff. You can tell that there was some greedy Hollywood hands in the cookie jar, and we want this out. We'll put it in Chicago. And again, they had to sit down. They had to compromise. Okay, 2/3 of the movie is going to be in Japan. 1/3 of the movie is going to be in Chicago. And that part of the movie doesn't work. The 1/3 in Chicago just completely kills the movie. To me, it kills a third of the movie because it feels so much like a setup for The Grudge 3 that it forgets to be entertaining and well done during The Grudge 2. That's the problem, is anything in Chicago in this, it's a Chicago apartment high rise. And no, it's not Child's Play. And no, it's not Evil Dead Fries and, or whatever movie you want to mention. It just doesn't work. You have a family, the stepmother's there. She doesn't get along with the stepson. Those characters are just horribly done. They're not fleshed out well. One of the people in the apartment is Jenna Dewan, who would go on to marry like Channing Tatum, and she would be in the horror movie Tamara. I think the same year. I think that was 2006, maybe in 2004. I don't remember what year Tamara came out. Someone could fact check me on that. But of course, she's in there. The one of the women from Disturbia is in the movie. I mean, some recognizable actors, but the stuff in Chicago doesn't work. It really, really, really doesn't work. It just boils down to that. The other 2/3, you have a lot of hit and miss. You have one of the 2/3 is Sarah Michelle Gellar's sister, played by Amber Tamblyn, of course, daughter of Russ Tamblyn. She comes to Tokyo to see what the fuck, Sarah Michelle Gellar, what happened, what's going on. I was attacked by an Onryo, Kayako Saeki, and basically Sarah Michelle Gellar gets killed very early on in this movie. She does come back. They market it. Oh, she's back. She's back. She gets killed very early on. And then, of course, it's up to Big Sister to investigate and try to figure it out. The direction of that storyline doesn't really work either. And then you get the other storyline of the three, which I thought of the three worked best, was, again, sort of a rehash from Ju-on the Grudge, where it's three Japanese schoolgirls, although two of them are fucking American. Three schoolgirls, they go into the house, and then they're kind of tormented, tortured, and picked off one by one Kayako Saeki. That one of the three works. I loved it. I thought it was great. Because here you have, of course, this new exchange student, this hot, blonde, popular girl played by Teresa Palmer, who, holy fucking yitties, what a amazing pair of yitties. I mean, it makes you want to get on your knees and oh my God, just the nicest fucking pair of yits I've ever seen is Teresa Palmer in this, who also go on to be in movies like Lights Out. The three of them, they go into the house. They're playing this prank on her. Oh, we're locked in the closet. They're holding the door closed. And then they let out and they're trying to film her on their phones, on their flip phones. And she can't get out. Like the door is actually locked. I thought that was great. I was like, this is good. Like this stuff works. Story-wise, it's a mess. There's no getting around it. It is a mess. However, again, you do have the main ingredients that make Ju-on work here. You have Shimizu doing wonderful scare sequences, and you have, of course, Kayako Saeki being played by Takako Fuji. Those two things are back, and they're the best thing in this movie by far. Now, this is not just a straight-up remake of Ju-on the Grudge 2 from 2003. This was a completely new and original story, with callbacks to some of the other movies, but mostly original plot. Scare sequence wise, I thought it was wonderful. Now, there's a great scene where one of the girls, that's the bully, she goes into this really cheap hotel, and they are this, in this room where it's all Valentine's themed. The bed is a heart-shaped bed. The walls are red. It's just aesthetically a beautiful looking room. It's a cheap motel that they just, basically you pay $25 and they have sex in this room, whatever. The, Japanese girl, she's waiting in the bed for her boyfriend. He's taking a shower. And when I first watched this, I go, okay, I've seen enough Ju-on movies. There's going to be the hand in the back of his head, and there's something moving underneath her covers. Well, sure enough, he's in the shower. We cut to her watching him in the shower, and something's moving under the bed. And she's like, what the fuck? And she looks underneath the covers, and there's nothing there. And I was like, ooh. I was like, where are we going to go from here? She kind of backs up, and there's a mirror behind her. And out of nowhere, Kayako Saeki pops up in the mirror, grabs her, screams in her face, and pulls her into nowhere. I fucking marked out. I was like, oh! Like, absolutely. Like, got off the couch. I was like, let's go. Because, again, while the past movie, it was a lot of callbacks to things that we have already seen. Here's Shimizu throwing lefts when we think we're going to get rights, and we get these wonderful scare sequences. Of course, the girl in the past movies, she was pulled underneath the covers. Here, we see something moving, look under the covers, nothing's there, gets pulled from behind. Excellent scare sequence. And then the boyfriend in the shower, what the fuck happened to her? He never sees what happened to her. He was showering the whole time. He gets out of the shower, he's like, where the hell did she go? Loved that. There's one girl, the Teresa Palmer, she's being a fucking, nasty lady in the locker room, Shades of Carrie. being really mean, bullying the one girl. You see her fucking, you don't see her yet, but like they're popping out, man. She goes in the shower. She starts washing her hair. Again, I thought we're going to get the hand thing. No, she's washing her hair and Kayako's hair starts falling out. And she's like, what the fuck? Her beautiful blonde hair and all this black Kayako Saeki hair. Oh my God. She runs, tries to call someone in a payphone. She's looking around and out of nowhere, Kayako's hair just starts to engulf her and like go all around. And then she's just taken it to the abyss. I was like, dude, some of the scare sequences just fucking hitting this one, man. I loved how it's directed by Shimizu. I just think, man, that guy was so great. And these movies were just bread and butter for him. He just did such a wonderful job. Now, those are the positives, the scare sequences, there's no doubt. However, the fucking story on this, oh my God, there's some negatives. There's just so many fucking negatives here too. Like, it's just such a mid movie. It's such a shame because had they had any kind of a story worth of shit or characters worth of shit, this would be a great movie. But I don't know. So here they decide to change some of the backstory, and you were told that instead of the classic story of Takeo killing Kayako and Toshio and Mar, the cat. Instead of that, Kayako was fed curses as a child by her mother, and that's why she's become an Onryo after being killed by her husband. What? That is horrendous writing, and I cannot believe Shimizu went along with it. Unless he argued that and they just said, listen, we're overriding you, I'm shocked that he let that happen. I would have threatened to walk if I was him. But apparently there are interviews where he contradicts himself. At the time, he's saying, I'm all for this backstory. Years later, he's like, it was a bunch of shit. So I'm like, wait a minute. Why did you back it at the time then? Was it the paycheck? Because that's possible. You write 7 figures down on a piece of paper and hand it to somebody. There's not much they're going to argue, And I know he argued the geography and got 2/3 of it here. At least he won most of the battle. But you could tell that was something he would never have had in any of his other movies. And I thought that was really a detriment to this film. I was like, God damn it. We meet Kayako's mother. I think Kayako curse. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? This was a fucking tragic character. And now she was fed curses? What? And you get this horrible black and white flashback where this lady's taking her long nails, getting a scoop of blood, and pouring it in the mouth of Kayako as a child. I'm like, God damn it, you're ruining the mystique of this character. This character was just a woman who had it all. It was absolutely just taken all away from her because she fell out of love with her husband who fucking went psycho and killed her ass. That's all it ever had to be. It's simple. She's a tragic character. You adding this, I just felt it took a lot of mystique away. It just took a lot of the emotion away. And I didn't like that. I thought that was such a poor direction to go in. I can't believe Shimizu let that happen. I really can't. My only guess is that the money talks. I really don't know. I don't know. Maybe he argued it and they said, oh, well, think about it. And maybe they said, we gave you 2/3 of the movie in Japan. We're going to do what we want on that one. That's possible. It happens sometimes. Sometimes, things get like that. When I did the Down by the Bay, there were things that I wanted, things that other people wanted. And like at the end, I had final say because I produced it and directed it. But if there was a producer that someone said, hey, I put up X amount of money, they're going to argue with me. And sometimes they're going to win and I'm going to win, Sometimes that happens. But here in the studio, it's going to be tough to beat them. It works. It works overall. Like I could watch it. I think it's an effective horror movie. I just think it's a mess story-wise. Steven Susko does the writing. I think you could have got somebody better than Steven Susko. I don't know. I like the movie okay. I think it's like maybe a 6 out of 10. It's a little bit of a step down from the previous movie, but it's one that I can rewatch. I think it's well done enough from a scare sequence standpoint. Again, Takako Fuji is excellent as Kayako Saeki. This was her swan song as the character. So to me, in my humble opinion, I would have ended it right here. I would have never made another Grudge movie. To me, this would have been, if it's a swan song for Shimizu, it's a swan song for the actress who plays Kayako Saeki, Takako Fuji. I'm calling swan song. We made a fuck ton of money, and it's only, the Hollywood thing to do to greenlight movies after they make a shit ton. This beats The Departed its opening weekend. I mean, I understand why they greenlit a Grudge 3, but to me, I would have said that's it after this. And they had some fun promotion for this. I mean, they did at the, I can actually pull up that picture here. At the premiere, they did, instead of like a ribbon cut, they cut the hair of Kayako Seki, which I thought was really funny. Yeah, here it is. So here, this is the premiere of The Grudge 2. Here, let me put myself smaller here. That's the premiere of The Grudge 2, where instead of cutting the ribbon open, that's the director Takashi Shimizu, Amber Tamlin, and Teresa Palmer. Looking wonderful in that dress, baby. Let me tell you something. And then, of course, you have Sam Raimi, who's behind one of the Kayakos. Instead of cutting the ribbon, they're cutting the hair of Kayako Seki. I thought that was great. I was like, yeah, that's a lot of fun. Like, that's fun. That's in good spirit. I like that. They also did some really interesting things where it was called The Grudge 1.5. That was, of course, directed by, oh my gosh, what is his damn name? Who did The Grudge 3? Toby Wilkins. He directed those. They were like 3 really, really short segments called The Grudge 1.5. And they were like, trying to hold over in between movies, kind of like inter-promotion, if you will, which are like, little segments to get you excited. They did the same thing with The Ring 2. They did the same thing with The Matrix. That was a big gimmick in the early 2000s. Let's do stuff in between to market our movies. And Toby Wilkins directed those, thus how he got the job to do The Grudge 3, which we'll talk about next. But, they did that. And they also did these flash animation things called Tales from the Grudge, which were terrible. It was basically flash animation that looked like it was done in 1993, but instead it was 2005, and it looked terrible. It's just a bunch of bullshit. It's a bunch of flash animation people talking, but nobody's moving. It was horrendous. It was truly horrendous. But, they did a lot of gimmicks like that. They had the money to burn. And to me, I'm happy to see a guy like Takashi Shimizu get a big payday. And I think he does deliver a wonderful horror movie scare sequence-wise again. However, though, it is a mixed bag. The story doesn't work. None of the characters work. It's a mixed bag. It really is a mixed bag. And to me, should have been the swan song. But we have quite a few movies to go here on Grande's Graveyard. So without further ado, we will move on from The Grudge 2, which I do give it the recommendation. I think it's worth watching just for the scare sequences alone. However, though, we're going to move on very shortly right now. I'm just going to get back to the plot synopsis. I think... Answer is survey says to that, brother, only. Okay, if you want a shirt, let me know. I'll ship you one out, man. That's all you got to say. Let's see. I saw the first Grudge. I think the one where the chick is in the shower and the gnarly hand grabs the back of her head. Well, yes, that is in the Sarah Michelle Gellar one with Sarah Michelle Gellar, but that's in a lot of these. Like, that's the big gimmick. It's done in almost all of these movies. It feels like it's so wild. Scorsese's movies don't always make a lot of money. Well, still, I mean, if you had told me, even in 2006, if you were like Grande, Martin Scorsese's The Departed with Leonardo DiCaprio, Matt Damon, all these wonderful actors, is going to get fucking beat by The Grudge 2. When it got, like, I would have been like, dude, no way. But it did. I mean, that's how it works, man. It goes to show you horror draws. When marks want to go to see a horror movie, it draws. It'll outdraw your Oscar movie. The Grudge 2 is a perfect example of a creator falling out of love with their own creation. That may be it. You might be right. You might be totally right. I sense that too, Aiden, where I sense a little bit of burnout. Because again, remind yourself, this is part 8. If you really think about it. If you include Katasumi and 444, this is the 8th fucking Ju-on thing that Shimizu was doing. He might have just been burnt out. And that's very possible. Maybe that's why the story just doesn't work. Maybe that's why the story falls apart. Maybe that's why the movie is really a mixed bag. Now, I don't see any issues with with the technical. I really don't. I mean, I thought he brought his A game again. If not, I thought if anything, I thought the scare sequences here were even better. Because again, hitting you with a left when you think you're going to get it right. We've seen it done X, Y, and Z so many times. Here he's going to hit you with something in between X, Y, and Z that you don't see coming. I thought that really worked. But again, maybe he was out of love with it. Maybe it was just a payday. Maybe his heart was more in a Maribito reincarnation, whereas this was more, for the wallet. And it's possible. It's definitely possible. The only person that can answer that is Takashi Shimizu, and I don't know how earnest he would be with that answer. I don't know. I don't know if I was him. I don't know how earnest that would be. I would be like, dude, I loved it, but it's by part 8. Yeah, I would have been burnt out too. I think that's just the humane thing to be. I don't blame the creator at all. He got paid dumb money to make these 2 American Grudge movies. Oh no, I don't blame him at all either. I would have done the same thing. I think it's amazing of how short and little of a start he made and how far he came. Like, he started as a film student, made these 2-3-minute shorts, and then, 8 years down the road, he's making giant blockbusters in America that are outgrossing Martin Scorsese films. This teenager from Japan who made 2-3-minute shorts that changed his life forever. It's 6 minutes that changed his life forever. That's the dream. I want to say the American dream, but in this case, the Japanese dream. That's the dream, man, for any filmmakers to make it big. And he made a hit, and you want to call him a one-hit wonder? I disagree. I think Maribito is a kick-ass movie, but some people might call him a sellout, but it is what it is. Chucky pops out in the Chicago and is like, nah, yeah, only Grande is like the Roger Ebert of horror. Dude, thank you, man. I appreciate that. And I know Roger Ebert loved this one. How are you, Johnny? Just moved to Ridgewood, Queens, New York City. Welcome, man. Welcome. Hope all is well with you, Anthony Chobot. Hey, Anthony, does pop cultures and openings. Okay, let's see. The Grudge 2 is really well made and acted for the most part. I just think the story is messier and less interesting. The Chicago stuff is pretty lame. Not a fan. I kind of agree with that. I think that's a good way to sum it up. The writer of The Grudge 2 went on to write Unfriended Dark Web. That's right. That's right. He did. Yeah. Steven Susko stinks. Let's be honest. Grande, do you think it could possibly be a problem translating the story from Japanese to American? I think the geography is a bigger issue. Okay, if you're talking Ju-on the Curse 1 and 2 and Ju-on the Grudge 1 and 2, Shimizu's writing, Shimizu's directing. You have the same creative as you do technical, and he knows what he wants. With Ju-on the Grudge, like I said, he was more cherry picking. It's cherry picking sequences, and Steven Susko's writing of those characters around it is not good. It's really not good. It's really where those movies fall apart. Is the Grudge 1 and 2 of America? The writing is not that good. But then again, I dare to say, is the writing that great in the Shimizu originals? They're not, but they're more original because this is the first time we were seeing those scare sequences done and that story being told, whether it be in the Pulp Fiction style or not. I think the biggest issue is moving it out of Japan. I think you have to keep it at its roots. I think that was a big mistake. And I get what Hollywood. Oh, we got to get it out of there. We got to get it out of there. Well, you got it out of there, and look what you get next. Yo, Kubrick lover, staying 6 out of 10. I might have to give it a rewatch. I think it's fine. I really don't think it's terrible. Like, okay, if you're just judging it on story, it's probably a 2 or a 3 out of 10. But he's so good technically, man. I can't like. What a lot of people say about the Maestro. Like think about what people say about Dario Argento. They're like, oh, the characters in his movies aren't the greatest, the dialogue, stories, whatever. I'm like, yeah, but I will watch almost any fucking Argento film because the guy is so good technically. So I look at it almost in that same vein. It's so well done from a technical standpoint that how could you not, if you're a fan of getting scared and find the movies effectively horrific like I do, I don't see how you could pass up, but that's just me. How are you, buddy? By the way, I want a shirt, buddy. Dude, I'll hook you up. I got you. You already got your order. No problem, my friend, Anthony Chobot. I will hook it up with a shirt. But that brings us to the last of the American trilogy. Of course, now it's a quadrilogy, but at the time, this was of course, I do not have, okay, I don't have the IMDb page up. Let me just duplicate this really quick. Duplicate. We'll click on the poster here. And then we will share that shit once it's loaded. Okay. So coming up next, sorry about that little delay. Coming up next, of course, from the year 2009, this is The Grudge 3. A young Japanese woman who holds the key to stopping the evil spirit of Kayako Saeki travels to the haunted Chicago apartment from the sequel. That's hysterical. That's in the play. It's from the Chicago sequel to stop the curse of Kayako once and for all. Yes, The Grudge 3. Okay. Now, I thought I was going to hate this. I had never seen it. I really, this is a movie I judged by its cover. There's no doubt about that. I really just a direct-to-video Grudge movie. You have the guy who directed Splinter, which I really like. Splinter, I think that's a really, really good horror movie. I think it won Horror Movie of the Year in 2008, if I'm not mistaken. he gets the job to do this. Of course, he had directed those mini vignettes, the Grudge 1.5. He'd done those. And he gets the directorial job here. Of course, gone is Takako Fuji as Kayako Seiki. Gone is the actor that they had playing Toshio. They replace him with someone who looks like he's fucking 14, which made no sense to me. Toshio died when he was like 7 or 8. Now when he was fucking 13. Like, why recast him and you casting somebody older? That didn't make any sense to me. Of course, now it's the entire movie is linear. There's no jumping around timelines. The entire movie is in America, even though it's supposed to be Chicago. They had no money to shoot in Chicago, so they shot it in Bulgaria. The entire film was shot in fucking Bulgaria, and it's trying to be Chicago. You could tell that they cut the budget astronomically to the point where why would you even do this? And of course, you do get some, like, you get a Shawnee Smith is in there, of course, who is coming off the heels of Saw. I believe she's in Saw 6 at the time. But this movie, while it's definitely not the worst of what I watched this week, it's just a movie that never should have been. It really never should have been. It almost feels like someone was like, the second movie did fine, even though it did drop off quite a bit after its opening weekend. Let's try to milk this cash cow one more time, do a direct-to-video Grudge sequel, and the DVD sales hopefully will, do great, and we'll make back our $5 million measly budget, which is a measly budget considering I think Ju-On the Grudge had a $20 million budget. Now you've cut it, down to a quarter of that with $5 million. You're shooting this thing in Bulgaria. And man, it shows. I mean, it's just there's no style to this picture. And I like Toby Wilkins. I think he was really, really, really dealt a bad hand here. And this is a theme that you will see a lot in the genre and a lot in this particular franchise. You will see later on with the Grudge 2020 what that movie in the studio Sony did to Nicolas Pesce. I mean, here you had an up-and-comer in Toby Wilkins, and he makes a great movie in Splinter in 2008, and he's handed this. This is his big reward. You made a great original movie. You're handed The Grudge 3 that Shimizu did not want to direct. He remained on as a producer, most likely to get a paycheck. Kayako Seiki, actress, of course, Takako Fuji, she don't want to do it anymore. I'm not working with Shimizu. I'm not doing it. I'm burnt out. No. When those two said no, you should have just said no. But money talks, greed talks, and that's, I think, the reason this was made is the word greed. That's what jumps out to me. And what you get here, it really feels like a fucking direct-to-video After Dark Horror Fest movie. That's exactly what it feels like. I know I covered those a few weeks ago. It has the same tone, feel, look, and style of those movies, and that's just not Ju-On. It's just so weird to see Ju-On delegated to something like that. And of course, the linear storyline and all being in America, it just really does not feel like Ju-On. And of course, a big part of that being you took away the director, you took away the main antagonist actress. So you're really taking away the sugar and spice and everything nice, and it just isn't showing in the product. It's just missing in the final product, which is a shame. Now, with that being said, I will say that there's not positives to be had. First and foremost, the characters are better in this movie than they were in the last movie. I shit you not. I really, really, truly shit you not. The characters in The Grudge 3 are better than the characters in The Grudge 2. There is no fucking doubt about that. There's no doubt. It basically tells the story of a family. It's a brother and sister. Their parents are long gone. Their youngest sister is really sick. She's like dying of some sort of rare lung disease. They might have said what it was. I watched this shit on fucking Friday, so you got to forgive me. I don't remember the disease that the kid had. Forgive me. She's got some sort of fucking disease, and they're working hand in fist to try to get money for her. Although the older daughter, she's trying to move away with her boyfriend. She was from an episode of Drake and Josh. I recognized her as, I want to get the actress name, Joanna Brady as Lisa. She was in the dance contest episode of Drake and Josh. I was like, holy shit, I recognize her from Drake and Josh. So she's in there. We do follow our one survivor from The Grudge 2 in the opening scene where he gets killed by Kayako. And instead of the classic Ju-On staples of killing people, where it's generally implied they're just killed off screen or they're dragged into the abyss, he gets mangled by Kayako Seiki, like mangled. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, that's not Ju-on. It's just not Ju-on. Like, what are you doing? I thought that just really did not work. Shawnee Smith's character is really good. I like Shawnee Smith in the movie. She plays like the therapist that didn't believe his story, and then once he gets fucking brutally murdered, she goes to the apartment to look into it. Of course, the apartment's now cursed from the Grudge 2. One of the characters runs to Chicago, and that's how the curse gets in Chicago, or Bulgaria, basically, in this movie. Scare sequences here don't really work. I mean, they tried. Kayako comes out of a painting. I was like, okay, if you had the money to do that, it might have worked. But again, they cut this guy's balls off. There's no doubt about it. I don't know. I think the characters work. I think that the director tried. I really do. I see a director that really wanted to make a good movie, and I really actually sort of feel bad for Toby Wilkins. Like, I feel bad he was dealt this hand. Like, to me, you look at the movie he made before this, he was dealt a hand of pocket sevens and turned them into pocket kings. He just really turned that hand into something great. Here, he was dealt like 7-2 offsuit and turned it into 8-3 offsuit. It just didn't work. It does not. It's not Ju-on. And you know, again, it's not the worst movie in the world. I've seen worse direct-to-video sequels, and we're going to talk about some fucking worse movies coming up. But this is the one that just does not feel like The Grudge or Ju-on. I mean, of course, you have Kayako's sister is now brought into the mix. And the woman that was dead in the curse, she was my sister. I'm like, what the fuck? Classic America. Let's just bring family members into it. Oh, and Grudge 2, Kayako had a mom. And fucking Ju-on 3, fucking now she's got a sister. Like, god damn it. Like, I'm like, is there going to be some fucking story or any reason to have the sister in this? Like, okay, when we were kids, she told me this, and then maybe this is the way to break the curse? No, nothing like that. It's just a way to just bring somebody else into it to be a victim. And the actress playing Kayako does a bad job. I don't like her. Her makeup is shitty. It looks like a fucking bad cosplay. It really, truly does. I mean, I could maybe get a picture of it up here because it just looks horrible, the fucking makeup in this. Yeah, this is like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, that looks like dog shit. That looks like somebody's going to fucking the Javits Center in fucking New York City after eating up $99 a fucking pizza and is going to take pictures for free with people. That's what it looks like, a fucking cosplay. And you got 13-year-old Toshio fucking scratching his knees and fucking picking his fucking ass. There's a scene where this fucking lady, she's walking up the steps and she sees Mrs. Potato Head. Mrs. Potato Head. We went from great Takashi Shimizu directed horror cinema to fucking Mrs. Potato Head on the top of a stairwell. Oh, wow. Am I supposed to be scared? There's 13-year-old fucking Toshio about to hit fucking puberty, about to fucking bat fourth on his little league team while he's not picking fucking ground balls on first base, but picking his fucking candy ass. And then fucking for some goddamn reason, the fucking brother goes crazy. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He's just, oh, now I'm Takeo. Now I'm fucking Takeo Saeki. I'm fucking crazy. I'm going to kill this fat realtor that's trying to sell the goddamn building. And I'm mad. I'm angry. I'm vengeful now. I'm an Onryo, even though he's still alive. God damn it. What a fucking piece of fucking fluff. That's what this is. This is American fluff. It really is. It pisses me off because you had a fucking capable filmmaker. You cut his balls off. You fucking cut his heart out, and you fucking handed him nothing. And he tried his best, but god damn it, if that's what my Kayako looked like, my movie would suck too. It's just frustrating. God damn it. Let's go back to comments. I'm sorry. I get fucking a little too worked up sometimes. Alpha is here. Alpha Romero. What's up, Grande? Not at all a fan of these movies, but love hearing you talk about film. Cheers, my man. Hey, man, I will drink to that. After that fucking little outrage outburst I had. Cheers, my friend. Thank you. Yeah, no, I had a feeling the chat might be dead tonight. And honestly, I understand. I'm just a nerd. Like, I love, oh, geez, I got Mountain Dew all in my glasses. What the hell? So there's the bad John Grande cosplay. I take my glasses off. Yeah, no, I totally understand. Like, I know, like, these movies are not popular, but I just love talking about movies. So thank you for stopping by. Even if it's not for long, I do appreciate you stopping by. You're going to love this. The writer of The Grudge 3 wrote The Grave Dancers. Well, that, honestly, that makes sense because I like The Grave Dancers. I thought the characters in that were written well. Again, not acted the greatest, but I liked that it was a good story. This, I agree. I think the acting the acting was mid, but the fucking characters were not terrible. It really, I saw Shawnee Smith in there. I was like, oh boy, like what the fuck? And I thought she gave a really good performance. I was like, okay. And I know they really pushed her with the marketing. It was like Shawnee Smith. And I'm like, the bitch is in there maybe 40 minutes. Like, don't get your hopes up if you love Shawnee. Juno 2000, what's up, buddy? Hey, Grande, saying hi to people. Some parts of Chicago looks like Bulgaria. Just kidding. I don't want to offend anyone. AJ, if AJ was here, he's from Chicago, so we would love to hear that from him. But no, hey man, I take no offense. I think that's funny. Hey, but no, never any hard feelings on Grande's Graveyard. We're all honest here and just real. But no, hey, that's true. Listen, when they're in the apartment, I would never know it's not Chicago. It looks like the same apartment from the previous movie, just lit slightly differently. But with that being said, you got to shoot this in Bulgaria. Apparently, this was a very troubled production because a lot of the people, when they were trying to close off streets for shooting, they did not speak English. So they had a lot of problems like that, a lot of language barriers. So this was a nightmare shoot from what I'm understood. So, I mean, that's a shame. It really is a shame. Dang, you become an upcoming horror director. You get handed a horror franchise that should be done at this point. That's quite sad. You get a hand-me-down. That's all this was. This is the people that were involved in this do not want to do it anymore. Here it is. Go ahead, take the ball, and let's see if you run with it. Let's see if you sink or swim. It's like handing somebody a fucking cinder block and saying, okay, swim to the end of the fucking pool. It's just not fair. I heard The Grudge 3 was shot in 3 weeks. Well, 3 and 3. It makes sense. LMAO, the cosplay joke. But that's what I mean. This is horrible. That's terrible. How much makeup you going to throw on this bitch? Oh my God, it's a fucking disgrace. Hey, Kubrick lover, let's see, Grande, I'm going to lurk. Going to lurk, okay. Let's see. It's really sad that Toby Wilkins hasn't. Yeah, he fucking. I would love to ask Toby Wilkins about this movie. I would be like straight up, did this discourage you from making feature-length movies? Because you made a really good direct-to-video one in the year before this. I really wonder. Hey, Juno, let's see. There's a music video premiere coming up in about an hour, so I might have to leave for the time being. I'm going to lurk. Dude, no worries at all, my friend. I appreciate any of you that stop by, even if it's for a minute. It means a lot to me. The Grudge 3, it's just poor. It's a really poor movie. I don't like it. I will say this, though. I don't want to say I don't want to say I hate it, but I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't hate it though, like I do some of these last few movies. The last 3 movies you like hearing me rant. You're gonna fucking love my review of the last 3 movies when we talk about that tonight. I love that Grudge character. Just joking, LOL. I love the character, but this particular look and performance just was bad. The studio system kills careers. They take young, talented filmmakers and suck they do. Look at this and look at Nicolas Pesce. This is perfect, examples. I really believe that. I really, really, truly believe that that's what they did. And it's a shame. That's America for you. It's just really a shame. I see so much talent and potential, and then it's fucking just wasted. Hey, congratulations on your Horror Tuber of the Month nomination, Nacho. Mikey's Morgue, welcome, my friend. Actually, funny thing about that, I won Horror Tuber of the Month like 2 years ago. So I reached out to Jamie Hart, thank you, Miss Jamie Hart, for nominating me. That was very nice. But I think it should be fair. I think we should have all new winners, newcomers. I was like, take me off. I was like, and she was like, oh my God, I didn't know you had won. I would have never did that. So she decided to do the video again. So you could go vote for any of the 4 new nominees. But thank you, Mikey. I appreciate that. I saw you did vote for me, and the vote and thought counts in my heart. So thank you. Grande and Alfa Romero, I never thought of how filmmakers getting wasted like that. They do. They absolutely do. And this prime example is The Grudge 3 and The Grudge 4. It just really is. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, though. So let's move on from this piece of monkey shit onto a horse or a ghost, if you will, of a different color. Yes, a horse or a ghost of a different color. I don't know which one we want to talk about first. let's talk about, I guess we'll talk about the one I liked better first, because this got a little bit dicey here. Let me go here, and we're going to share the screen here for the next movie. Of course, basically what happened is in the same year, 2009, they wanted to celebrate in Japan, of course, 10-year anniversary of Ju-on. They wanted to get away from the polished American-looking movies that had come out, The Grudge 1, 2, and 3, respectively. They wanted to go back to the original roots. They wanted to go back to what Ju-on, The Curse, was all about, in making a low-budget horror film involving a curse from up-and-coming filmmakers. And Japan comes out with not one, but 2 hour-long movies, and not horses of different colors, but ghosts of different colors. I bring to you now from the year 2009, this is Ju-on White Ghost and Ju-on Black Ghost. Yes, this was the poster. It was a double bill in similar vein to, of course, the Grindhouse double feature, where Ju-on White Ghost, Ju-on Black Ghost, which is scarier? That's how it was promoted. It was like, which one is going to be the better? Which one's going to be the scarier? You could go in with your friends. It's 2 hour-long movies back to back. Of course, we're back in Japan, and of course, we're kind of moving on from the Saeki story. These are 2 completely different new curses, new stories, and 2 different filmmakers. I believe the director for, the director for White Ghost was Ryuta Miyake, and the director for Black Ghost, I forget off the top of my head, but I can look into it, no problem. They had 2 different directors and storytellers, and they said, hey, we'll give you an hour palette. We're not going to give you much money. It's going to be gritty, grimy, back to the old school curse feeling. We want you to make horror movies that are fucking raw, right? And that was the idea. Shimizu came on board to produce it, and then they let these 2, run with the ball. So we'll get into White Ghost first. It was the one I liked a little bit better of the 2. Brief plot synopsis. Here we go. Akane begins seeing visions of a female ghost wearing the same yellow hat and red satchel she wore as a school child. Well, that's a poor plot synopsis, because that's not really what happens in this. So basically, Ju-on White Ghost opens up on Christmas. It's a Christmas movie, goddammit. I was excited when it started. I'm like, okay, Christmas movie. I'm all into this. It's this guy. He's going to deliver these gifts for people. He's in a Santa outfit. He comes up in a golf cart. He goes to the house. And, I'll be right there with you. I'm just having my hands full. And then the woman keeps coming out and saying the same thing over and over and over again. He's like, what the fuck? So he goes to the house to kind of investigate, and he finds a fucking massacre. Like, the whole family's been massacred, man. Like, to the point where I was like, oh my God, like, what happened here? And then the rest of the movie plays out like classic Ju-on traditional. It jumps all over the place, and we get wonderful scare sequences again. And to me, out of all these other Ju-on movies past the Shimizu era, this is the one that came the closest to capturing his style, his feel, and his technical, to me, is this movie. I think this is the best thing at this point of the show, and for movies to come down the road. It's all low after this. Granted, Black Ghost, I didn't mind. And Kayako versus Sadako, I like. But with that being said, they have this, massacre, and then we're interwoven throughout all the storylines, and it works. I think a lot of the scare sequences work. There's a really good one where the guy who at the beginning, he sees all this massacre. He's, of course, cursed now because that's a different curse. He goes home, and his girlfriend is giving him a Christmas cake. She says, Merry Christmas. And they sit down, and she starts to cut the cake, and he gets enraged because he pictures the knife being cut into the people that he saw massacred, and then all of a sudden takes the knife and stabs his own girlfriend in the throat. And he's like possessed and taken over by the rage and starts stabbing the hell out of her. And it's graphic. It's gory. It's probably the most violent Ju-on movie that there ever was. And I thought, okay, if you're going to change this, if you're going to bring it back to the roots and get away from the glossy American style that we've had, you bring it back and you give me something that's fucking raw. And that's what White Ghost delivers. I think Black Ghost to an extent too, but White Ghost mainly delivers something that's fucking raw. And that's what I appreciate about this movie. It's a raw, gritty, uncensored, unbridled horror movie. And I thought it worked. And it had really low budget. It's not the best looking movie. It looks really rough around the edges, almost as if they rubbed sandpaper on the film stock. But It works. I think it works. There's a lot of interesting themes here. Of course, you get the family moving into this house. Now, it's not the Sayeki house. It's a completely different house. And you learn about more about that house in Black Ghost because the family in Black Ghost owned it before the family in White Ghost. They move into the house. They seem like the great American Pie family. The uncle and his niece are very close. You have the grandmother, who's this kind of sweet lady. There's a problem with her character we'll get to. We have, the teenage daughter. We have very, stereotypical all-American apple pie Japanese family. They look normal. Of course, as they move into the house, weird things start to happen. They start to affect them in weird ways. And some horrific shit start happening. The uncle out of nowhere becomes very sexually, devious towards the niece, and they have some hints at that. You don't see anything, but they hint at it enough. You have the grandmother who is just really weird and shit like that. And I mean, we're going to have to just address the elephant in the room is the problem with the antagonist in this movie. The Onryo is not Kayako. It's not Toshio. It's this woman right here. Now, she was the main marketing ploy. In this picture, yeah, I think it looks intimidating. I think it looks scary. However, I don't know if they're going to have a picture of this. If they don't, they don't. They don't have it. Okay, they don't. So I'm just going to click here. They don't have the picture of it. But basically, the main Onryo in this movie, the main antagonist, runs around with a fucking basketball in their hands. Every single death scene, murder scene, scare sequence pays off with the white ghost running up to you with a fucking basketball in their hands. I am not kidding you. I'm trying to find a picture of it just so because people would not believe me if I didn't just show it because it's just absolutely wild. Oh my god! Okay, wait a minute. I got the picture. Let me go. I got to share this screen here. Bear with me because when I saw this, I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, how did they decide on this? Like, this would have been like if Sadako Yamamura came out of the fucking ring with a tennis racket. Like, what the fuck? Like, the scare sequences were good up until the payoffs, all of them, because then they had this fucking white ghost bitch running up to you with a basketball. What the fuck? You see, she gets strangled, and she has the classic Kayako croak. The classic croak from Kayako. So that makes sense. And it's a callback to the other movies. But again, she was strangled, so it does make sense. Her windpipe got crushed. I just don't understand whose fucking call was it to have this fucking ghost running at people with a fucking basketball. It just does not make any sense. And it takes you completely out of the fucking scene and ruins the atmosphere that is actually well established. I was like, God damn it. What did they, like, who was thinking of that, man? Like, it just, what a misfire. Like, I don't know who made that decision. Like, oh, it would be iconic. Like, okay, I can understand the Toshio, meow. I can understand someone saying, that's really goofy. That's really silly. That doesn't fit. I get that. I totally can understand somebody saying that. But again, it made sense because they were drowned in the same bathtub, he and the cat. Of course, there's the old Japanese folklore legend of if a Japanese child dies, their souls become strays. And of course, a stray cat, hence the meow, the cat noises. That worked for Toshio. This basketball lady, it's not like she was one of the fucking WNBA All-Stars. If you can get past it, which it's hard to do, I think it was really good. I actually really liked it from top to bottom. Other than that, I'm like, God damn it. All you had to do was just be like, no, enough with this basketball. Let's just I think they were probably trying to go for something that would stick. And it sticks, but for all the wrong reasons. It doesn't stick because it's good. It sticks because it's shit. The basketball thing. Oh my God. Like, it completely takes you out of the movie. But again, overall, I think it works. I think it works because, again, you're going back to the roots. You're going back to what made this work. You're going back to what brought you to the dance. And that's what I thought worked about Ju-on White Ghost. And I liked the idea. Okay, we've done Kayako and Toshio to death. Let's do something different. Let's give two up-and-coming filmmakers their own creative platform. We'll make two of these bad boys. We'll do an hour each. We'll put them out in theaters together, and you can decide, did I like Ju-on White Ghost better? Did I like Ju-on Black Ghost better? And you and your friends can bullshit about it over Applebee's or popcorn or whatever the fuck. I think the idea is brilliant, and that's probably what I would have done had I been in the position of power to do so. I think it's a good idea. Now, could you have given these guys a little bit fucking more money? Sure. Could you have just done one big movie and decided on one of these stories, like pick the story? Sure. I think you could have done either one of those two things and it might have been fine. It might have been better. But with that being said, I think this is worth a watch. It's a Christmas horror Japanese ghost movie. The massacre takes place on my birthday, which I thought was great. December 23rd is when the massacre takes place. I was like, yo, that is so cool that the, Ju-on White Ghost Cursed is born on December 23rd, the same day as me. So I thought that was cool. A little bit of a personal connection there. I liked it for the most part. I just think the elephant in the room is that basketball. That's just like really, really, really bad. And I don't understand why they went there. I really don't. But it is what it is. It is neither here nor there. There's nothing you can change about it now. But that, of course, takes us to the same year, the same day where Ju-on Black Ghost was released. And I'll give you a brief plot synopsis for that. A nurse named Yuko has a strange experience while taking care of the girl named Fuki. Test results show a cyst inside Fuki's body, but that cyst is actually the leftover grudge from a baby who was unable to be born. Cyst's grudge spreads to Fuki and everyone around her. Fuki's sister Mariko has a special spiritual power and some success driving out the evil spirit, but the evil of the grudge is yet to come. Yes, Ju-on Black Ghost. Now, I didn't think this was as good, and again, on paper, I think it sounds interesting. Now, you have the whole curse of an unborn child, a twin, if you will. Gabriel, where's my Malignant fans at? You have a very similar plot to Malignant. It's an unborn, instead of I think a malignant tumor in Malignant, this is an unburned cyst that's in her stomach, and occasionally will pop its head out. And of course, this creates this whole new curse. This lady's sister Mariko, she's this spiritual, person, and I'll remove the curse, twin from you. Don't worry about it. She basically tries to, and all fucking hell breaks loose. Now, this one, it works in some ways, although I laughed at this one more so than was scared by it. Now, it's scarier than the next three. It's definitely scarier than the next three. But again, I don't know if that's saying a whole lot. Like at one point, I actually fucking belly laughed. I had to pause it. I laughed so hard. There's a husband and wife, they're fighting, and the woman who has the twin inside her is in the middle of the room. And for no reason, just starts shrieking like a lamb. And I burst out laughing. It's just like in the middle of the room, like for a good 40 seconds, I fucking couldn't stop laughing. I was like, what in the hell is going on in this movie? And then she faints. They take her to the hospital. Oh, you have an evil twin inside you. Oh my God, a fucking Onryo inside you. I thought that was bizarre. It was interesting to go here. I thought this was actually a little bit of mature themes to be tackling here, whereas White Ghost did mature themes well. This one, I think, jumbles it a little bit. Now, scare sequences work, I think, for the most part. I thought they worked. But this one, I feel like the story is just really kind of blah. Not really that memorable, not really anything to run home about. It's a little bit deeper for a Ju-on film. And I think some people will like that, some people won't. I kind of, fell in the realm of I don't give a fuck-itis type of deal, but not the worst thing in the world at the same time. I don't know. I personally like the White Ghost movie better, but I think Black Ghost had some interesting things to it. Of course, the woman that takes the cyst out, the twin out, her and her family get fucking brutally murdered, and their curse takes over the house. Thus, when the movie ends, you see the family from White Ghost moving in. So it's like, okay, they were the original curse. And there are interesting, like Kevin Smith View Askew, crossovers. Like there's a point in White Ghost where one of the parents, they pick up a picture and it's the previous family. Like, who is this? And it's all crumpled up. And you're like, oh, that's the fucking, that goes on to be the family in Black Ghost. Okay, I see what you did there. I thought that was smart. There's a scene at the end where she says, oh, will you be long? And he's like, I'm coming. And this guy's hanging himself. And I think it's basically supposed to be he's saying he's coming to the house, like he's coming to whatever. I don't know. There's a couple of interesting things where they kind of intersect the movies. And also the weirdest thing, I guess, to make them Ju-on, Toshio is a cameo in both of them. You'll see Toshio show up in brief, like 10-second cameo in White Ghost and Black Ghost. So I was like, okay, there's no real reason for another to be there to be like, oh, this is Ju-on, you know. Okay, yeah, that was fine, but I don't know if that really needed to be in there. And almost, if anything, it just distracted me. I was like, what the fuck, Toshio? Like, oh, okay, now he's not in it and had nothing to do with this movie, but he's just in there just to be like, hey, this is Ju-on. I don't know. Pointless cameo to me, but maybe it meant something to somebody else. So, I mean, it is what it is. But Ju-on, White Ghost, and Black Ghost, I like White Ghost. I think Black Ghost is average at best. So definitely, you know, you can watch these if you're interested. Trust me, it's better than all three movies that we have to come, because these next three, and that's excluding Sadako versus Kayako, because that I'm going to gloss over. But man, these next three, holy shit. Let's get back. We don't have too many comments. Let's see. Splinter is truly awesome. Feels like the best sequel to John Carpenter's The Thing. I love the movie too. Juan Soto's a Yankee. Let's fucking go. Italian Goodfellas. Hope all is well with you. In basketball, what is the Wes Craven? I mean, yeah, I don't understand. I really do. I'm like, dude, what? Like, were they? I think they really were just trying to make it memorable, and it just didn't. I'm like, dude, why? Like, what is the fucking point of this? It just really didn't make sense to me. Hey, at Italian Goodfellas. Okay, so those are the comments. Let's move on into our next movie, which I about had a blown gasket watching this. Right now, as of the recording this, I thought this was maybe the worst. It might be the following movie. I don't know. It's one or the other. This is from the year 2014. Of course, 5 years later, after the White Ghost and Black Ghost did not really catch on financially in Japan. Of course, the movies did not make that much money. Of course, 5 years later, let's reboot it again. And instead of doing new and original Onryos, new and original curses, new and original white ghosts, black ghosts, whatever color ghosts you want to have, we'll fucking bring back the Saeki family. And instead of having Kayako being the main antagonist, we're going to have Toshio be the main antagonist, as this is the movie from 2014. This is Ju-on, the beginning of the end. Let's fucking hope so. Let's fucking hope that this is the beginning of the end, because this is the beginning of the end of me being positive on this fucking show. I'll tell you right now. I think this was the worst thing I had to watch this week. I really do. I think of all these movies, this was the worst one. Brief plot synopsis. A school teacher visits the home of a boy who's been absent from school. Ju-on the curse, just saying. Back to the plot synopsis. For a long period of time, unaware of the horrific tragedy which occurred in the boy's household many years ago. When this started, I thought it was going to be okay. Like 10, 15 minutes in, I thought I was in capable hands. I thought it was going to be fine. The movie has more money to it, has a more theatrical look. It is more, I know there's some people that say, oh, it's fixed the technical issues. That was not the point of Black Ghost and White Ghost. Those were supposed to look gritty because that's what they were. It was a callback and celebration of 10 years of Ju-on. Here, though, you do have a much more polished Japanese style look. You have Mazuyuki Okai as the director. And I, after 15 minutes, just completely was fucking shit. They shit on my face, this movie. This movie, Ju-on beginning of the end, shit on my fucking face. It took a monkey shit on my fucking face. And it was disgusting and horrible, and it stunk. And where to fucking begin with this? The movie opens up where it's a news crew going into the Saeki house. Oh my God. I'm like, at first I'm like, are they going to do a Ju-on found footage movie? That would be interesting. They drop that after the opening 5 minutes. They go in. Oh, there's a boy in the closet. He's been starved. He's been dead for a week. Oh, his name is Toshio. And then they cut to a teacher. Oh, Toshio's been missing from class, which is directly from Ju-on the Curse. That's exactly what happens in that movie and the Sarah Michelle Gellar movie. This is the third time you're repeating the teacher going to check on fucking Toshio. But here, Toshio was never Kayako's son. After fucking 10 plus movies. Now you're telling me that Toshio did not squirt out of fucking Kayako? Now Kayako had a fucking immaculate conception of Toshio, who died in the fucking 70s. Toshio, the original Toshio now, by this movie's logic, died as a child because his family didn't love him. They locked him in a fucking closet where his fucking Japanese ass starved. He starved in this fucking closet. And then when Kayako Saeki and Takeo Saeki move into the fucking house, Kayako is pissed, and she's not in love anymore, and she's not tragic anymore, and she's not head over heels in love with this professor like she was in the other movies, which made sense because she was a hopeless romantic that was unjustifiably killed by her piece of shit husband. No, here, she's not getting enough dick in her life. Takeo is off on too many fucking Japanese business trips promoting fucking hard candy. And she's writing in her journal, oh, my husband's never home. He's a piece of shit. He neglects me. I need to have a child. I want to have a baby. Then in a dream that Kayako Saeki has a dream where Toshio touches her belly and immaculately fucking conceives himself in her belly, and all of a sudden she's pregnant. And she pops Toshio out. And fucking now that's the Saeki family. Now Toshio was never the son of either one of them. He was a tragic character from the past because now their idea was, let's shift the focus to Toshio. Let's make him the main antagonist. Fuck you. That's a disgrace. It's more of a disgrace than fucking putting it in an apartment in fucking Chicago, Bulgaria, or wherever the hell you could afford. It's more of a disgrace than anything Steven Susko wrote with Kayako being fed curses. As dumb as all that is, this is worse. You're thinking of monkey shit on my fucking face. And you fucking... I just can't. Like, what? How did they do this? I can't believe. If I was there, I would have threw myself on the floor and fucking screamed bloody murder until they stopped doing this shit. It's just terrible. How could you shift the focus and do that with it? Now you shift the focus and, okay, there's so many interesting things you could have done with that. Here's Toshio, the innocence in all of this. Even though I know people say, oh, Kayako is innocent, and she is in a way. She really did not deserve what happened to her, but she was writing some things. She was stalking a little bit. She was thirsting for some fucking professor penis, let's be honest. However, the innocence in all of this was also Toshio. And to me, the brilliance of Toshio's character is that he is not the antagonist. In a way, he's a warning. Toshio is the warning that Kayako will come. He is the promissory note that death and horror and all these things will arrive soon. I never looked at Toshio as evil, as more so a sad, tragic, stray spirit. That's what Toshio was. And now you're going to make him this evil entity who was neglected by his parents because they didn't fucking feed him and they locked him in the fucking coat closet? What? And they have these awful scenes of the Saekis talking to each other, which I couldn't believe. I got up in my bed. I was like, you got to be kidding. You fucking Kayako yelling at Takeo, and she's like, you are not the man. You could not get me pregnant. I had Toshio. And fucking Takeo is like, he's not my son. And he gets upset and really discouraged, and he kills Kayako in a fit of fucking anger. But in my opinion, God damn it, I would have been mad too. Now, I'm not saying that warrants murder, but God damn it, if you told me my son of 7-8 years was not my son, and that you didn't love me, and that you didn't have, and the baby wasn't mine, I would have been fucking pissed too. In a way, changing all that makes Takeo a little bit more justified in what he did, which is horrible, and it's not the point. Awful. Truly awful. He puts, instead of drowning Toshio and the cat in the tub like all the other movies, he puts the cat in the microwave. Does anybody want to make any fucking Orville Redenbacher movie theater butter theater popcorn in this motherfucker? Anybody want to heat up some fucking leftover raviolis? He puts the cat in the microwave. What the hell? American Psycho 2 was putting cats in the microwave. Now you're going to do it? God damn it. Oh, what a horrendous piece of monkey shit. And the scare sequences here just do not work. Horrible. You have one lady, she gets cursed. She's looking in her refrigerator. Her refrigerator. She hears something in the kitchen. She turns around and gets pulled from her hair into a refrigerator. God damn it. What? How do you go from Takashi Shimizu and the wonderful scare sequences, and like I said, hitting you with the left when you think you're going to get it right, and this lady, the scare sequence payoff is she got pulled into a refrigerator. Is your refrigerator running? What do you got in the fridge? Is there any Mountain Dew in that fridge? Because I will fucking grab it and you can take me away, Toshio. If as long as it means I don't have to watch this nonsense. The beginning of the end. God damn it. I wish it actually was. Because this sucked. And there's also the visual of the entire movie. Spiral. There's a spiral. What does it mean? It's never told in the movie what the spiral means. I'll tell you what it fucking means. It means that the franchise has officially spiraled out of fucking control. The wheels have turned out. You've lost control of the car. You have people being dragged in refrigerators. You have cats being shoved in microwaves. You have Kaiko Sayeki taunting Takeo, saying you wouldn't fucking get me knocked up with Toshio. He died 30 years ago in this fucking house because his family wouldn't feed him. He died next to a North Face jacket. And God damn it. Oh my God, what a piece of shit movie. I just can't. I hated this from top to bottom. I hated this. Hated it. Absolutely hated it. I mean, of all the things I watched for this week, and the next two are horrible movies too, but this I thought took the fucking cake. I really did. I hated this the most. And in this movie, we don't have Kayako crawling down the stairs, the iconic crawling down the stairs. No, we have Kayako crawling up the stairs. Whoa! Whoa! Let me go do a fucking cartwheel because now this bitch is crawling up the stairs as opposed to down the stairs. I would rather watch the fucking Javits Center Comic-Con fucking cosplay Kayako Sayeki than this. Than her crawling up the steps at the end. Are you joking? What a horrible, shitty poster, too. That looks like a sci-fi original movie poster. Close up on an eye. That's terrible. That's nothing on Takako Fuji. Nothing. It's just awful. Oh my God. Let's go back to comments. Rant ahead. Yeah. This is where the fun begins. Yeah, it's horrible. Warning, possible Grande rant. Yeah, rant, LMAO. This sounds like a good time at the movies. Oh my, if I had saw this in a movie theater, I watched it in the safety of my own room, and I was going nuts. I was like, because I heard mostly good. Although the movie gets a 5.1 on IMDb, and the next one gets a 4.4, and the next one after that gets a 4.3. So, is what it is. This was a horrendous piece of shit, though. I don't understand how anyone could give this a positive rating. Sounds like the solution in this movie is just to avoid the kitchen. Yeah. And the closet, Mateo. Avoid the closet. Do not go in the coat closet. Otherwise, your family will not go into the kitchen and feed your candy ass for 20 years or 7 days in Toshio's case. I think you completely spiraled out of control with this movie. I think everything you changed was for the worst because you completely shit on Kayako's character. Her character in this comes off as a wacky bitch. This is Kayako Sayeki's character in this. This is what you've done to a horror icon in Kayako Sayeki. I want to get pregnant. I want to get knocked up. My husband is a piece of shit because he works. He won't stay here and get me pregnant. I'm going to taunt him after 7 years of having this kid around, and I'm shocked that he fucking got angry and killed me. Shocked. I'm shocked. I've never been more shocked in my life. The only way I've been more shocked if I got fucking tased in the balls. Is the only way I get more shocked. God damn it. No joke, the American Grudge has a cool poster. I love this poster. That's an awesome poster. Takako Fuji is got it, man. She's got it. Kayako ain't stopping me from getting my Mountain Dew in the kitchen. Dude, this lady gets pulled into a refrigerator. I was like, yo, how does this happen? I can't believe. Like, I was like, are you kidding? I rewinded it. I was like, there's no way they would do that. They did. There's not one scare sequence that worked. And they also, just cherry on top, they changed the house. Now it doesn't look like the Saeki house. It's a beautiful house with a skylight. Yeah, because what the Saeki house needed was more light to fucking ruin the only atmosphere that you could have possibly created in this movie. Oh my God. Sounds like this movie should have stayed in the closet. Yeah, it should have. It really should have. But that's not the end, folks. We still have two more here. We still have two more, unfortunately. And we will move on into, of course, the next movie, which was basically more of the fucking same. As I go to share the fucking screen here. Let me go here. Right. I'm starting to croak like Kayako Saeki. The next movie, of course, brought to you by the same fucking director and writer. This is Ju-on, The Final Curse. Yes, it's the final curse now. Ba-da-doo-doo. Run away from the fucking fridge. Basically, the same exact, like a continuation of the last movie. That's all it was. It was like the same bullshit. In this movie, stop me if you heard this before on this particular Grande's Graveyard episode, the protagonist from the previous movie, her fucking sister is now involved, just like The Grudge 2. Wow, okay. We should have just brought Sarah Michelle Gellar back. Why the fuck not? She's looking into the disappearance of her sister, and the same nonsense goes on. You have this lady works in a hotel, and I thought, oh my God, cool setting, a hotel. What could we do with this hotel? I'm gonna tell you what they did. I'm gonna get extra close. I'm gonna tell you what they did. These were the scare sequences that they did in this fucking cocksucking movie. This was the scare sequences that they did. You have an entire hotel to play with, and this is what they did. The elevator. Remember the scene where any fucking good Grudge movie with Toshio, floor to floor to floor to floor. Oh, awesome. It's building the suspense, and then we're going to pay it off in the room with Kayako. Awesome. Here, you have a hotel maid open an elevator, and there is 30 Toshios on the elevator. 30! There's like 30 fucking Toshios. I'll show you the picture if they have it here. Here, let me go here. 45 pictures for this piece of dog shit. Let me see if they... Here it is! It's the number one picture because it's like unimaginable. How does this happen? How in the hell does this happen? How is that scary? You have a whole hotel to play with and you decided to put 30 Toshios on an elevator? What a bunch of nonsense. I mean, horrible. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. You have one scene where they're having a party in the hotel room. Okay, interesting. They're singing karaoke. The one lady goes to the bathroom and they do a fucking blink and fucking Toshio is on the bathroom sink and does a jump scare and it sounds like he did it into a karaoke microphone. A karaoke microphone jump scare. How does this happen? How does you have spiraled out of control and crashed into a nitroglycerin plant and then fucking dropped an atomic bomb? Like that, it's just like, what? How is this? How did they let this happen? Like, what the fuck is this? Oh, it's just terrible. I mean, look at this nonsense, man. Oh my God. What a piece of shit movie this was. Yeah, like, again, you have a great setting of this hotel. What can we do? What can we do with this hotel, man? And they didn't do anything with it. I don't know. To me, this was just, and of course, you know when a movie says the final anything, it's going to be a bunch of shit. And it's never going to be the last one because money talks. And like, here you have a movie that, granted, didn't do great, but oh my God, Michael Jackson would have loved these movies. Oh my God, that's hysterical. Oh, I was gonna say, let's see. Oh my God, what the hell is that freaky poster? Yeah, it sucks. LMAO, I'm dying. Yeah. Sounds like Kayako and Toshio have been done dirty in these. Yeah, they were because it was completely just fucking. I can't. I don't. This one, I won't lie to you, and I never really do this. At a point I just started playing on my phone. I was like, this is not. This is. I've been watching. Like I watch on Monday and Tuesday of my fucking week. I watched these movies. I watched one on Monday, one on Tuesday, and about at the hour mark of this movie, I just was like, I'm playing on my phone. I don't care, and it's in Japanese, so there's sometimes I don't know. I don't even know what was said towards the end. I don't know how it wrapped up, but I know it's a bunch of fucking dog shit. So I hated both of these. There's probably a good argument that this one of the two was worse than Beginning of the End, but to me, this was just like I knew already I was going to hate it after seeing Beginning of the End, written and directed by the same guy who wrote and directed this one. I think these are the two worst Ju-on movies. There's no doubt in my mind. I hate them with a burning passion. Hate both of these movies, like to death. I would recommend you lube your balls, or I'm sorry, you glue your balls to a fucking chair and get up after it dries. I would recommend you fucking jump off the fucking tallest bridge other than watching this movie. I hated this. I think these are the two worst Ju-on movies, and that's saying a lot because the last movie we're going to talk about here tonight is a true piece of shit as well. Mateo's laughing. This movie feels like a Monday. It does. It does feel like a Monday. Oh, it was so fucking bad. Monday through Wednesday show prep was really tough. But, you know, it is what it is. It's horrible. It really there's no yeah, there is a story I maybe could go into here, but it's like who cares? It was so bad. But with that being said, before I get into the last movie that I'll fully review, a brief overgloss because I did review this one in depth on the Monster Mash show. Again, if you want to watch that review, that was the last review I did on that show when I did Godzilla versus Kong. I did Frankenstein versus the Wolfman. I did Sadako versus Kayako, and I did Freddy versus Jason. However, they did have this movie the following year. So much for your beginning of the end and your final curse. The following year, they made another one. So, I mean, that there goes your shit. This was the Battle of Onryos, Sadako versus Kayako. Yes, Ring versus Ju-on. And honestly, to me, especially with Ju-on needed this. Ju-on needed a movie like this. And by no means is this a great movie. And I'm shocked it exists. Like, I guess brief, like, kind of overview of the history of this movie. It started as an April Fool's joke. It was a joke. Like somebody posted on Instagram or Twitter or somewhere and was like, Sadako versus Kayako. It was joked and laughed about. 8 months later, the movie gets greenlit. They're like, why not? Let's do it. Let's have them face each other. And basically what happens is the characters watch the ring tape in the Grudge house and hope the curses will cancel each other out and they can break both curses. Well, that doesn't necessarily happen. And I mean, you know, the movie kind of plays out from there. Now, I have a fun time with this movie. By no means is it good, but to me, it's the dumb fun that both franchises needed at the time, Ju-on especially. Beginning of the End and Final Curse take themselves so fucking seriously that you need some dumb, fun popcorn movie here. And I think this is the perfect movie for that. If you want to watch it's basically Freddy versus Jason if it was Japanese. It's very similar to Freddy versus Jason. Like the tone, style, story, very Freddy versus Jason to me. And I think in a good way, just an entertaining, dumb, fun popcorn movie. If you think about it, you're going to probably hate it. And I don't think this is a movie you should think about. I don't think this is a movie you should watch with the biggest critical eye. I think this is a movie you should go into, turn your brain off, and fucking eat some popcorn and enjoy yourself. And I do think it works there. Now, the fight itself, which to me is the biggest thing when you're doing a versus movie, is the fight. The fight itself is weak. That's the only knock I really have on Sadako versus Kayako. I really wanted to see some bitch slapping and fucking craziness. I will say the best part of the movie is when Toshio gets dragged into the TV by Sadako. I marked out when I first watched it because I didn't see it coming. Like Toshio's sitting there, and then you see he turns and the TV just grabs him in. And I was like, oh shit. And Kayako kind of crawls. It's like, what the fuck happened to Toshio? I thought that was great. But I don't know. It's a fun palate cleanser. It's a fun, dumb movie. And I think in my opinion, after Ju-on White Ghost, it's the last good Ju-on movie that there is. So I recommend it. I'm not going to fully review it, but I think it's a good movie. I think it's worth the watch, and I think it's a fun time. If you have Shudder, you can watch Sadako versus Kayako, The Ring versus The Grudge. Now, that brings me to the last movie that we're going to be talking about here tonight. Of course, let's go back to America, y'all, because the Japanese, granted, I will say this, as bad as this next movie is, it's better than Beginning of the End and Final Curse. I really do believe that. I think this is the third worst movie I watched this week. I watched them right in a row, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, the three worst ones. This is from the year 2020. This was the first movie of this decade, ladies and gentlemen. It's here. It's now. This is The Grudge 2020. Brief plot synopsis, and I mean really brief. It's one sentence. A house is cursed by a vengeful ghost that dooms those who enter it with a violent death. I feel like all these plot synopses have been so similar. I'm fucking cursed at this point. It's like, those who die in the great grip of a powerful rage will die in the fucking curse and the terror and whatever the fuck. Yeah. By this point, I was burnt out. I was so burnt out in these movies. And this was fucking horrible. Another prime example of a young up-and-comer in Nicolas Pesce, who made a great horror movie in The Eyes of My Mother. I reviewed it on the show. I also reviewed it alongside of Eyes of My Mother. Two really good horror movies and an episode of Graveyard I really like doing. I think we have over 1,000 views on that one. I love The Eyes of My Mother. I think it was effectively scary. I thought when I saw it, I'm like, man, I'm really excited to see what this guy does next. I think he did one movie after this and then gets the job to do The Grudge 2020. Now, this baffles me. I don't necessarily know what happened here. I really don't. There's a few things that run through my mind. Number one, this might have just been, let's try to capitalize on the money of Halloween 2018. And in that vein, it's just as bad as Halloween 2018, if not worse. It's right there. It's really equivalent to that particular movie, which to me is what it feels like it's trying to go for. There's been people I've heard say it's trying to go for elevated horror. It's elevated. It's not A24, but it's elevated, y'all. We have deep themes of grief and sorrow and drama. And it's not just any old horror movie with blood and gore and splatstick. No, horror movies are more fucking, deep and powerful and impactful. Not really. It's just not really. It's so much more deep than it thinks it's more deep than it is, this particular movie. And then also I've heard the main thing you hear is studio interference. It feels like somebody had their fucking greasy Cheeto fingers in the middle of this thing. And this was a Sony project. So logically that's the right way to think. And it could be any of those three. It could be all of those three. I don't know. I wasn't fucking there. But I'll tell you one thing. If I ever met Nicolas Pesce, I would, number one, tell him I really enjoyed Eyes of My Mother. I would like to talk to him about that movie. And I would have one question, 2 words for this movie. What happened? What happened? Because I can't believe how bad this is. I cannot believe that a great young up-and-comer could make a movie worse than fucking The Grudge 3 was. And this is far worse. The Grudge 3 is a better movie than this. I'm not even kidding you. Now, I can tell that the guy was a fan. You see a lot of callback to the other movies. If you look at the clocks, it's 4:44, a callback to 4:44. You see throwbacks to, Ju-on the Curse, Ju-on the Grudge, all the old Japanese movies. You see that this guy was a fan of Shimizu. And there's a lot, to the point where there's so many callbacks where it's like, was this really a sequel or could it have just been a remake? The Hand in the Shower. Okay, whatever. That's par for the course, I guess. Story-wise, what they do here really sucks, too. The movie opens where it's the caretaker that was replaced in this movie. You never saw her in this movie, and she was never mentioned in this movie, but in this movie, she's leaving. Oh, I don't want to be taking care of this lady anymore. I'm leaving. I'm out of here. She walks out. And then you see Kayako Saeki pop up behind her, and then we cut, and this lady is home. All of a sudden, she's home. She's taken the curse to America with them. Again, the producer's saying, we don't want it in Japan. We'll have the opening scene in Japan. We'll show Kayako for 2 seconds. Now the curse has been passed on to this lady, and then, a new Ju-on is born in her house as her family dies in a vengeful rage, and the new curse is born. Then we follow 3 awful, and all 3 of these were awful stories. One of them, the best of the 3, is John Cho, who from Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle, who I love. I love that movie. I love the actor. John Cho is great. Searching, a really good movie. I like John Cho a lot. Always have, always will. He and his wife, they're having they just moved into this house. He's a real estate agent. They're planning, having a child. The child is going to have, what was the ASD? I think the child's going to have some sort of, illness when it's basically going to be a baby with problems when they have it. And they have these interesting conversations. Should we have it? Should we not? What should we do? I love you back. Interesting. I think that should have been the main plot, but you maybe spend 15 minutes at most with them. I think it's less. I think it's 10 minutes you spend with John Cho and his wife. You have another 10, 15 minutes of Lin Shaye and her husband, and they're a couple of 50 years. She's suffering dementia, and they hire this fucking kooky lady to help Lin Shaye kill herself. And then the final segment, that's basically the majority of the movie, is the worst, is this boring cop who has the personality of a piece of fucking Wonder Bread. This boring cop you're following around. She's a single mom, and she's investigating the curse. And all of these stories intertwine. It's from 2004, 2005, and 2006. It's all interwoven, trying to be like the old Ju-on movies and play with, chronology and, going out of order and shit like that. This was terrible. I think this was absolutely terrible American fluff times 10. This was just anything that is generic about a horror movie is in this. And this is the type of horror movie that gives horror movies bad names. All of the scare sequences in this were so poor and generic that it made you want to turn it off. There's a scene where the lady who's helping Lin Shaye commit suicide, she is, of course, exposed to the Onryo, who's not Kayako or Toshio in this movie. It's, of course, after the first 2 seconds, it's this new lady's family, which didn't work. She's in the grocery store, and she feels something touching her hand, and it's the little girl that got killed. Oh, my God! You have a guy, oh my God, I forget the actor's name. The same actor that played the Grim Reaper in Bill and Ted. He's in this. Again, he played Tony Teresi. I can't think of the fucking guy's name. But he's in this, and there's these 2 guys, they're in a diner, and they're so trying to rip off Mulholland Drive with the Winkies, dream scare, the jump scare behind the fucking Winkies. They're sitting in the diner, then they go in the car, and there's a jump scare as there's a fucking Onryo in the window. And he's like, ah! 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 And he fucking over the top gets out of the car. I was like, dude, what? It was so fucking bad. And all of the scare sequences just didn't work in this movie. Lin Shaye is cutting carrots and then decides to cut her fingers off. And she's like, ha 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 ha, I cut my fingers off. Ha ha ha. I'm like, what in the fuck? And the gore was so over the top in a Ju-on movie, Grudge movie, what have you. That's not what Ju-on is. I wonder if that was studio interfering, saying this needs to be more bloody, and all the deaths are just super over the top and gory. I'm like, dude, what? That's not Ju-on. You have, thank you, William Sadler. I don't know why it could not come to me. Thank you for that. You have the lady who's trying to assist Lin Shaye. She runs out of the house after Lin Shaye cuts off her fucking dados and fucking gets into this car. She's driving on a closed road and then veers off the road, crashes into a tree, and her arm breaks in CGI splat, and she dies. I'm like, bro, what? Her arm broke into a CGI explosion? What is this? John Cho, there's a scene where John Cho goes into the house and he gets attacked in the bathtub and then goes home and kills his wife and stabs the shit out of the fucking, you get the idea, the child was cut out and maimed and murdered. That was really pleasant to watch. I think that was the biggest mistake this movie made, is John Cho and his wife should have been the leads. There was no reason for that boring cop to be the lead of this movie. She added nothing to it. It was so uninteresting. I thought you had an interesting story there. Here's a family that doesn't have it all, like the Sayekis did. You know, here's a family that you see that there's going to be issues, but through their love, that's going to, you know, protect them. And then you could have had them interfere, you know, encounter Toshio and Kayako. I think that would have worked. I think maybe you should have just rebooking this. John Cho and his, you know, I guess his white wife, they move into a house in Japan and you just do the whole thing in Japan. That's what I would have done if I'm booking this movie. But of course, no, it has to be in America. Oh, no, that John Cho can't be in it for more than 10 minutes. Horrible. The scare sequences in this movie are arguably the worst of any of them. And I can't believe that coming from Nicolas Pesce. And I see, that's where I don't know if you could blame the studio. Can you really blame the studio if he didn't get the scares? If he didn't scare you? I don't know if you can point fingers there. Sure, characters are shit. I know that there was apparently 35 to 40 minutes of deleted scenes in this movie, and it's all character stuff. So that smells like Sony to me. Sony was like, oh, character development, throw it away. Gore. That, I think so. But the scares, how could you really say that they interfered with that? Did they? I don't think so. Fucking Shibizu had plenty of fucking people trying to stop his vision. These movies are still scary. The Grudge and The Grudge 2, respectively, still have good scare sequences. This just doesn't. And I thought it really, really let this movie down to the point where I was like really rolling my eyes as the movie was kind of coming towards a close. I was like, God damn it. Like this is something else, man. I don't know. Mateo, when you saw this, John, you were probably so burnt out. It's true, man. I was so burnt out at this point. Like it was a lot of movies to do for show prep this week. But next week we're only doing 3 movies, so it should be okay. Sorry I'm late. How's everyone going? Hey, Nate, the Explorer of Horror is here. 3 stories in The Grudge 2020 are so boring and dreadful, I almost fell asleep. Yeah, it is. It is quite boring. That's the thing. The last 3 movies, other than Kayako and Sadako, are boring movies. And I don't ever really say movies are boring, but this was really dull. And it doesn't feel like an hour and a half like it is. It feels 2 hours. It's quite boring. They totally, that is exactly what they were going for. This is my homage to Mulholland Drive. It's 2 men at a diner talking about something scary. One of them gets in the fun car and sees something that makes him jump. It's the same. It's the Winky scene. I was like, dude, they fucking try to rip up the Winky scene. Does it have suspense or atmosphere? No, it doesn't. It really doesn't. It has gore. That's what they tried. They really tried to up the gore here, where this or White Ghost are probably the most violent Ju-on movies for what it's worth. I think they were probably trying to play to a slasher film fan audience, and that's not what Ju-on is. Ju-on is not slasher. It's just not. And I think that's maybe where the studio was trying to dabble. But again, I don't think any of the rest of it works either. Also, why does this movie feel like a bad wannabe David Fincher film? Wow, that's so true. I didn't think of that. That is completely true. It does. It has the look, color palette, feel of Fincher, but it's Fincher done bad. I agree with that wholeheartedly. That is so true. Nothing worse or takes me out of a movie than the boring movie. Yeah, and it was. It really was. And it was bad too. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I've heard people say that Black Ghost and White Ghost are boring. No way. I watched them start to finish and never got bored. This, about an hour, 15 minutes in, I was like, all right, when is this over? Thankfully, it was 15 minutes. But apparently yes, so let's get to that ending. You have the ending where I'll burn the house down, just like in this movie. And that really worked out great. We've had 8 movies since. We'll burn down the house and end the curse. The kid is going off to school. She hugs the kid. And then you see the kid in the background. Oh, love you, Mom. And you notice that she's hugging the Onryo. And then the fucking movie literally just cuts to a shot of the porch. The movie ends with a shot of the porch. I'm like, what the fuck? And apparently it was so bad with test. I don't know if it was test audiences or if it was actual, but apparently it was like one of the most audible groans ever was the people that saw us in the movie theater. People were like, what? Like, bullshit. Similar to when I saw The Lodge. That was when The Lodge ended, everyone was like, what? That sucked. You know, this apparently had that times 10, like the people reacting, which again, I thought was really funny. They ripped off the ending of The Grudge 3. The Grudge 3 ended the exact same way. It's the 2 siblings. They're hugging each other, and she says, we're going to be okay. and she looks, and it's Kayako is the sister. She's in the fucking sweatshirt, and the movie ends. That's the same ending as the Grudge. You ripped off the ending of the Grudge 3. You ripped off the Winky scene. You, of course, brought back the hand. You brought back all the Shimizu gimmicks that just don't work when the direction isn't up to snuff. Bad. Really, when a good up-and-coming director gets ruined by a studio, gets ruined by a franchise, and unfortunately, was tainted here. I really feel bad for Nicolas Pesce. I do, but I would love to ask him what happened. And it's maybe too early to ask that question. This movie's 4 years old in just a few weeks. But I'd love to know, because he hasn't directed a feature length since this either. So the guy who did The Grudge 3 has not directed a feature-length film since then. The guy who directed The Grudge 4 has not directed a feature-length film in 4 years. I mean, it's disheartening. It's really disheartening. If I'm going to go with The Grudge 2020, I'm trying to be like a wannabe David Fincher. That also explains why there's a ton of unnecessary gore. Yeah, I don't know. I really feel like that was studio. That was Sony. The gore. Like Lin Shaye kills herself in this, and she explodes into a million pieces. There's a lot of off-screen stuff in the movie, which again fits with the Halloween 2018. I don't know. I thought it was a piece of shit. It really was a bad film. It all reminds me when I first watched The Forest and The Gallows in the theater. We're all laughing, calling the lame. Yeah, it's definitely in that quality. It's right there. To me, this is the Halloween 2018 of these movies. Like it's that bad. It's really, really that bad. But it's also a step up somehow from Beginning of the End and The Final Curse. Like I would say it's better than those two. I would watch anything over those two. I thought at least, I don't know. There really was not much here though. This was a fucking piece of shit movie too. Yeah, it was January horror at its finest, man. It really truly was. This is a prime example of what makes me sad about the genre, man. This Toby Wilkins and Nicolas Pesce, good up and comers, getting handed franchises. And unfortunately, it's sinking their careers, their hopes, and their dreams. It's sad. It's quite sad to see. Like, I mean, as somebody who, listen, I'll be the first one to tell you this too. Like, with Down by the Bay, I like definitely look at the Jasmine character, the woman in yellow character, and I see a little bit of Kayako Saeki in there. Like I think, like maybe I wasn't necessarily going for that, but I think when I think about it, it makes sense, and there's a correlation. Like here's a character that was innocent in a way, died in a wrongful, way, and then haunts this thing, and it's creepy, and all these things, and tries to show emotion just through expression and things like that. Of course, with mine there was dialogue, but again, a lot of that same kind of horror going on. I see that, and man, like imagine if the studio came to, oh hey, we want you to do this, and then they just completely shit on your vision, and that's such a shame. That's such a shame, and a disparaging, discouraging thing for somebody who made a short like me, and like especially to somebody like a Nicolas Pesce and a Toby Wilkins who made two great feature-length independent horror movies that turned a lot of heads, and then instead you're just fed this. I think that's such a disheartening thing. I think the whole thing is so disheartening. Like that to me, while Grudge 3 and this are better than Final Curse and Beginning of the End, they're more disheartening than those movies because, hey, man, these were two guys that had a lot of promise, and they're not making movies anymore. They're not working anymore. They're done. Like, that's just really sad to me. It really is. Filmmakers shouldn't be involved with any Grudge sequels. Well, and here's the thing, man. It's not just this. Like, look at any other fucking thing. Like now the whole thing is you look at Mike Flanagan. Perfect example. Love the guy's direction. I loved Hush. I really liked the Hill House show. I liked Oculus. I like Mike Flanagan. I think the guy is a really good filmmaker. All you keep hearing, I hope he does the next Elm Street. I hope he does the next Elm Street. I hope he does the next Elm Street. I don't want to see another Elm Street. I don't want to see what happened to Nicolas Pesce and Toby Wilkins happen to a Mike Flanagan with an Elm Street, because that there's going to be producers involved. There's going to be bigger voices than him involved with bigger pockets, and they're going to override some of the shit and creativity he has. If he's not touched, I'd love to see that movie, but that's not what it's going to be. It's just not the world we live in. It's not real life. Grande, sometimes filmmakers can do good homage if they do it right, like De Palma, Scorsese, and Tarantino does it. Oh, of course. There's no doubt about that. And I think there are Easter eggs in here. If there's any positive I could give, the Easter eggs in the Grudge 2020 work. Nicolas Pesce is a solid filmmaker I really, really liked. So did I. Piercing is another quite solid. It's a shame the Grudge 2020, but maybe it did. And maybe, just maybe, and we don't know the behind-the-scenes story. Maybe, and this is, I hope this did not happen, but it's something that I thought about. What if the poor reception of this movie blacklisted him? And maybe it wasn't all his fault. Now, granted, I do think the scare sequence is not working is his fault. But the rest of it, I would think studio dabbled. I would. And if he was put in director's jail for something they studio meddled in, that's not fair. That's just not fair. Your first film is really important, especially if it's a studio film. You have to get exactly. These guys make these movies to get them off the ground. Look at what Sam Raimi did. It makes The Evil Dead. Holy shit. Imagine if you immediately just given Sam Raimi, oh, we're going to give you Texas Chainsaw 2. Or we're going to give you Halloween 4. Or we're going to give you Friday the 13th Part 5. I love Sam Raimi. Would he have done a good job with any of those movies had he been handed them? There's no doubt in my mind. That was not the movies he needed to be making. He needed to be making Darkman. He needed to be making Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, The Quick and the, The Quick and the Dead, and whatever the fuck, I forget the damn name of it, Spider-Man. Then he eventually grew, and then go back to the roots with the Drag Me to Hell. That was a guy who was an up-and-comer that stuck to the fucking plan and made what he wanted to make. If he had been handed Halloween 4 or 5, like Dominic Othin-Gerard and fucking, what's his name, Dwight Little, were those guys really getting that much work after those sequels? No, they weren't. They were bodies. Did the guy who directing Scream 7 make shorts? Oh, I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know enough about something. London is his name. I don't know. People seem to be very excited about him. I sadly think the scare scenes in the Grudge film were Pesci's decision as well. I do. I think that's where I can't just say, oh, fuck Sony. And I agree. I trust me, fuck Sony. But it makes me worry, man. I think that was a big problem with it. For B. John, the studio producers will always have the upper. They do, and this is a prime example. Look at it. That's what I think happened here. I really do, because I saw talent in what he did when he was on his own. I see the dabbling when he's not. But again, I do think some of the blame has fallen on him. But again, all around, I think you have to side with most of the directors. I really do. And I think that these up-and-comers, you cannot feed them things like this because you should let them be original. Hey, if they want to, if it's a dream, like look at what John Carpenter did. I want to remake The Thing. I love the original. That's great. John Carpenter had made Halloween, The Fog, Escape from New York, Assault on Precinct 13. He made these great movies and then did that as a passion project. But if John Carpenter kept Halloween 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, if he had just kept making those, we would never have gotten to They Live. We never would have got A Big Trouble in Little China. We never would have got, all these great movies that John Carpenter did. So I just think that, handing these up-and-comers, these franchise sequels that nobody really wants to do, it's just, I think, a slap in the face. Yeah, you did all this hard work. We're going to hand you The Grudge 4, and it's going to come out January. You're setting the guy up to die. So yeah, they are. Did they rinse repeat? Oh, of course they did. Yes, of course they did. The hand stuff, they did a lot of the same attempts at scare sequences that don't work. It's a real mess. It's a piece of shit. It is. There's no way around it. It's a piece of shit. I hated it. The last 3 movies, other than Sadako Kako, I hated with a passion. But it is what it is. Unfortunately, that is how the Ju-On movies for now end. Now, I know I did not mention Ju-On the series. There was a Ju-On Netflix series that I never watched. I've heard it's great, so I'm going to have to give it a watch, but I didn't have the 6 hours left in the week to watch that too, so it's an incomplete retrospective without that. I'm sorry. That's the only thing I could not watch for this show, so please forgive me. But I've heard it's good, so we'll see. But, it's sad. It's sad to see how good Ju-On started and where it ends up. But I mean, that's a lot of franchises. It really is. Look at any of them. Look at any of them, even from America or Japan. Whether it be Ringu, whether it be One Missed Call, whether it be Battle Royale, whether it be fucking Halloween, Friday 13th, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Nightmare on Elm Street. They all start on top, and they generally all end at the bottom. Sadly, and hopefully they're done. But with the way it goes, man, who knows? Who knows if the final curse is really the final curse, or the final chapter is ever truly the final chapter, or the final Friday, or the final nightmare, or whatever the fuck, or ends. It never really is. Why is there so many movies? Dude, I don't know. I just don't know, man. Anthony's here. Fever, Dreamland Theater, Grande. Love that half brother. Dude, hell yeah, man. Long live the greatest movie of all time. We saw this in the theaters together, me and Anthony. We had a very fun night. The longer you milk that cash cow, there's going to be more bad installments later on. Exactly. And this thing was out of milk by The Grudge, too. I think that's when it ran out of milk. And White Ghost and Black Ghost, again, interesting. But, I mean, it just really should have stopped. It should have died. But it is what it is. Thank you guys so much. This was a fun show. I'm sorry for the long-winded, Japanese horror talk. I had a lot of fun, though. Next week, we'll be talking all things winter horror movies. We got Dead End from 2003. We have 30 Days of Night and Let the Right One In. So I'm very excited to be discussing all things winter horror next week. Of course, we also have a roundtable planned the week after, and then the wonderful Fever Dreamland Theater at the end of the month to wrap things up with the Twilight Zone. So we have a lot of fun things planned on the show. Mateo, thank you so much, as always, for staying the whole time. Miss Carter, thank you so much. Great show, as always. Only on the Graveyard. Thank you so much. Night John, great stream. I'll be back on later to check out the rest of the show. Nate, thank you so much. And to anyone, like I said, if you guys want the shirts, if you're feeling it, let me know. If not, no worries at all. I'll make a post in the community tab to say, hey, last call for the shirts. No problem or offense if you don't want them, but that is, is what it is. So everybody, if you catch out the replay, let me know what Ju-on/The Grudge movies that you like, that you hate. Let me know your ranking. Let me know your list. I'd love to hear it. Let's see. Phenomenal show, Grande. Thank you so much, Aiden. Ciao, Grande. Buena notte. Buena notte. Good night to you too, Mr. Cougar Lover. All right. So that is all for now. Everybody, cheers. To sweet peace, and we will catch you next time only on the Graveyard. Good night, everybody.